for St. George South on his very, very able and thorough presentation of the bills in a way that was understandable and easily so to anybody listening. Because I guess, sir, most people hear renewable energy and it's a new concept for Barbados. It shouldn't be, because we were the pioneers in solar technology back in the 70s, and we sat back, sir, and allowed the rest of the world to take our product, run with it, improve upon it, maximize it, benefit from it, and we do what we do best, sir, quite often, is we come up with the good ideas and then let somebody else capitalize on it. That is about to change. It was described today as the energy revolution, and that's what it is. Why is it a revolution? It's a revolution because this is going to fundamentally change the way we look at energy in Barbados. When we think about energy, we think about coal, we think about oil. When we think of transport, we think of noxious fumes. When we think of the road in Barbados, we think of gas spewing out, black gas spewing out of the back of people's vehicles. And that is the way that we think about energy in Barbados and transport. When we think manufacturing, we think of burning fossil fuels again. So the whole process of energy production in the minds of most people is one that involves, at some point in time, smoke, noise and smoke. Sir, we have started upon the energy revolution. The government's policy is well known by now of 100% generation of electricity from renewable sources by 2030. And at the worst, we are expecting to get a carbon neutral Barbados. The difference between the two, sir, is that one would involve the use of natural gas, which is perceived as a clean fuel, and one does not contemplate the use of natural gas. But in any event, by 2030, the landscape of Barbados would have changed entirely. Now, what does this mean, sir? I'm going to discuss what it means for us, why the amendments were necessary, and what it actually means to the average Barbadian. As I indicated, when we contemplate energy, we contemplated energy as it was. But equally so, our legislation contemplated energy and electricity and the regime that surrounds both of them in a historical way. The Fair Trading Commission, contemplates the setting of rates between a utility and the eventual consumer. That is very important, sir. It is between the utility and the eventual consumer. So the Fair Trading Commission is seen by the public as protecting me, the average Barbadian, from an unequally yoked utility, whether it be telecoms with the mobile providers, whether it is the Barbados Water Authority. Sorry, sir. Some very raw memories. Whether it's the Barbados Water Authority, sir, whether it's, of which I am also the minister, whether it's the electric utility. What it did not contemplate or does not contemplate, and also the utilities legislation, the existing utilities legislation, what does not contemplate is other players in the space, intermediaries in the space that fall between the eventual consumer and the ultimate utility. Let's go specific to energy. As it stands now, there's a monopoly held by the Barbados Light and Power, sir. A monopoly situation. The Barbados Light and Power generates all of the electricity in Barbados, and it sells all of the electricity in Barbados. That is the terms of their license. They have a complete monopoly over the provision of electricity in Barbados. There are no other players, so to speak, in that space, no other significant players. In the new regime, in the energy revolution, as Minister Husbands referred to it, and we do as well, in the energy revolution, we have what we call the democratization of the grid. Other people can come in, other players can come into this space. It is a fantastic and exciting new investment opportunity. But once again, there's nothing regulating exactly what lines they have to tow, what the cost of their electricity should be, and on. It is not contemplated, sir, that the monopoly of the light and power is going to change in relation to the selling of electricity, the transmission and distribution of electricity. But it will change in relation to the generation of electricity. So we're going to have what is called a buy-all, sell-all situation. I want to break this down, sir, because at the end of the day, I want not just the members in here to understand, but I want the average Barbadian to understand, because this is perhaps the single greatest opportunity for enfranchisement of the Barbadian in recent memory. People, when they see renewable energy projects, they think to themselves, well, I don't want to pay an electricity bill, so I'm going to put some solar panels on my house so I don't have to pay an electricity bill. It doesn't exactly work like that. You can, as some persons have done, take themselves off the grid, make themselves entirely self-sufficient. That, you know what, I am taking my house off. I don't want anything from light and power. Light and power, you don't exist to me. I am now responsible for the generation and consumption of my own electricity. If my system fails, that's at me. I don't need you, light and power. I believe that the honorable member for Christchurch East Central is one such person. He is well known, sir, to be a most forward-thinking and financially conservative and prudent person. As, to use Bajan parlance, so I'm trying to not defame him because it is a quality I admire significantly. To use Bajan parlance, he does not spend a bad cent. He is the perfect Minister of Finance, sir. Value for every cent. But if you are not like him, and you actually want to partially deal with your house, to partially power your house, or to oversupply so that you can make a return on your investment, then you enter into a buy-all, sell-all arrangement. It makes sense. Everything that you generate from your renewable energy project, let's call it PVs for now. We're going to branch off into other things, but it's easy for Barbadians to contemplate PVs. All of the energy you generate from your PV, you sell it to light and power. As you generate it, you feed it into the grid, you sell it to light and power. And then you buy it back. If there's a surplus, I would sell them, let's say, $100 in electricity, but my electricity bill is only $60. Then, at the end of the day, I get back $40. So it is necessary for people to understand that, because herein lies the opportunity to capitalize on something you never thought of before. All of us have roofs. All of us have roofs. Everybody who lives in a structure.
PV, is it photovoltaic?
Sorry, sir, sorry.
For the reporters.
I may keep slipping up and saying PV, but it is photovoltaic panels or photovoltaic system.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. So, you now have a situation where every person who has land that they're not using or is not useful for agriculture, every person who has roof space, every person who has garage space can now get into the space, get into the renewable energy space. Now, there are companies, I'll call the names of some. BNOT, which is the Barbados National Oil Company Limited. BNOT has transitioned, sir, into being an energy company. They're investing in renewable energy. There are other players in the market space that are literally driving around Barbados looking for people with big roofs, warehouses, sheds, looking for people with spare acreage of land, RAB land, and they're asking to rent your roof space or to rent your land to put down the solar PV farms. So even if you don't want to go into the space of installing the roof panels and managing that yourself, You can actually now, sir, rent your roof space to some other entrepreneur. You collect money that you were not gaining otherwise from your simple roof, and that person puts down the PV panels and they turn a profit as well. So there is something in there for literally everyone in Barbados. I want you to contemplate this, sir. If right now we spend in excess of $500 million per year in importing oil and gas and petroleum products, Barbados, I think the largest drain on the foreign reserves of Barbados is the purchase of fossil fuels. The single largest drain. If we got to a point where we were not purchasing fossil fuels, but generating all of that energy in Barbados from renewable sources, so you're not necessarily outputting, other than the initial installation and the capital costs, you're sitting back and collecting profit. That is $500 million circulating in Barbados that is not flowing somewhere else. Every person who wishes to get involved in this space has a chance to play a part in that. Now, sir, how do you get into this space? You as the individual may not want to. But when I leave here today, sir, I'm going at 5 o'clock to the first general meeting of the new energy co-op in Barbados. People are coming together to invest in this space. The credit unions are changing their charters to allow themselves to invest in this space. We have more interest. I have never seen the amount of interest in any single investment opportunity, sir, as we are now seeing in people trying to invest in the renewable energy space in Barbados. It is small people, it is medium-sized people, and then we have the big players trying to get into Barbados. The government's policy, sir, is all that money can go. It makes no sense for us to go to this point and then let all of that money flow out of Barbados again. So the stated policy of the government is that 30%, a minimum of 30% of any renewable energy project has to be held in local hands. The final policy is going to emanate sometime very shortly, sir, but that's the Prime Minister's stated policy, and we're working towards codifying that. But 30% of a minimum of 30% of the renewable energy space in Barbados is now going to be held for Barbadians. But it gets even more exciting than that, so there are carve-outs for special people. So for all the charitable institutions, there's intended to be a carve-out of a certain percentage of the renewable energy space to fund charities. There's intended to be a carve-out of that renewable energy space, 15%, a minimum of 15% for the Barbados Water Authority to fund capital projects. There's intended to be a carve-out, I believe, for the Sanitation Service Authority. So because of the possible generation of money, we are actually looking at how do we fund the state agencies or the agencies that are a drain and cripple the consolidated fund. Now, sir, I can't overstate what an exciting time this is for us. The fact that the credit unions are looking to get into this space, the fact that possibly every large firm in Barbados is looking to be in this space, the fact that you're seeing solar panels on every big building now coming up in Barbados should say something. And what it says, the Honorable Member for Christchurch West and I had a conversation this morning, and he asked me, is it true that you get X dollars? I don't want to put him under any pressure. He apparently has lots of roof space dotted all around the country. But is it true that this is the return you get on your renewable energy investment? And I told him yes. And he was shocked. He said, but this is perhaps the best investment you can get into in Barbados. I said, yes, it is. It is. Now, right now, we have an installed capacity, meaning all of the energy capacity in Barbados, all of the light and powers, generation capacity, any renewable energy capacity in Barbados right now, sir, totals, I think, 227 megawatts of capacity. Now, you have to have excess capacity because some is sometimes down for maintenance. You have to allow for peaks and that sort of thing. But our peak consumption is around 150, 160 megawatts in Barbados. If we go fully electric in Barbados, sir, then we are looking at a minimum installed capacity of about 600 megawatts. So we are going to triple the total capacity we have in Barbados. Now, if we put every energy generating thing in Barbados together right now and generate it at one time, within 10 years, we're going to triple that. Because if you think about it, sir, the car that you're driving is no longer running on gas. It's actually running now on electricity. The manufacturing plants that are operating are not using heavy fuel oil or anything like that. They're all running on electricity. So all of the inputs that you use to generate electricity are now going to be natural, but everything will at some point in time have to plug in. So naturally, we're not using all of the oil consumption, the petroleum products consumption is now going to be replaced by electricity. So we now have to satisfy a hungry electricity demand of over 600 megawatts. There is plenty space in there for mega investments, sir. Mega investments. Let's go back now, sir, to the reason we're here. I'm not going to run through all of the figures that my friend, the Honorable Member for St. George South has already done. He did the technical and the heavy lifting part of that. I actually want now to try to get everybody as excited as I am about what is in front of us. Why is it necessary for the Fair Trading Commission to now have oversight and some degree of control over this space? It is not as simple as saying we're going to pay you 41 cents per kilowatt hour or 41 cents per unit of electricity when we buy it from you. This is Light and Power. Because, sir, there are many different ways to generate electricity. We keep thinking about solar. I've spoken about solar because it's easy. We are now looking at wind, onshore wind and offshore wind. We're looking at biomass. We're looking at biogas. So we're looking at waste to energy. Now, it would be lovely, sir. It would be easy and cheap for us to just cover the whole country in solar panels. Right? That is perhaps the cheapest way to generate renewable energy in Barbados, the use of solar panels. But, sir, it's not practical. If you go into space, Barbados will look like one big mirror. Right? B, sir, if you pick up and use all the arable agricultural land, then my good friend, sir, from St. Philip South will probably have a conniption. And there are other considerations. We have to have land available. Barbados can't look like an industrial plant. So you have to think of what mix can we do. And if you actually factor it as well, sir, solar generation is only good while the sun is shining. So in the perfect world, you may get 10 hours of solar generation, 10 hours of useful sunlight to power your solar plant. Sir, we plan for and average out at about 4. So we need now to have a more reliable source that can pick up the slack for when the sun is not shining or the wind is not blowing. And we call that base load. One useful way of generating base load, sir, is by burning garbage or generating it through burning of waste, the combustion of waste. Now, that is one of the most expensive ways to generate electricity. But we also have to measure the social costs. So, is it only generating electricity? Is it generating electricity while solving a waste management issue? All of these factors go into play. So, you can't say to the man who is going to build a large waste-to-energy plant that Light and Power is going to purchase your electricity, your energy from you at the same price they're purchasing it from somebody with a couple solar panels on their rooftop. Or you can't say to somebody who's bringing in wind turbines, which are expensive, that we're going to purchase it from you at the same price that somebody is, we purchase from somebody who has a few solar panels on their roof. So all of these things need to be balanced out. The perfect person to do that, sir, is the Fair Trading Commission. But as it stood, as the legislation now stood, The Fair Trading Commission controls the pricing between the light and power and the ultimate consumer. And there's no one or no agency or no system to control the pricing as between an independent power producer, which is the third party in the middle, and the light and power, as well as the ultimate utility. So that is why these amendments are actually necessary, sir. These amendments bring the law in line with our reality. Sir, the other thing that we need to consider is when we do get our offshore program up and running, it is up and running, but when we do get to the point of discovery, concrete discoveries, and the production of oil offshore, there's no intention to use those products onshore. So all of that, sir, becomes gravy, for want of a better word. All of the oil that we discover, or the assets, the hydrocarbon assets that we can discover or locate off of Barbados, we don't have to use them inland in terms of domestic consumption. They can be used straight away to generate foreign exchange, to be used on social projects, to be used to run the country, effectively as an untapped source that we don't have now. So all of that now counts effectively, simply, as icing on the cake. So, sir, I did not intend to be long. The amendments sought today are simply intended to bring some level of order and structure into what is an exciting new space. I urge Barbadians, we are people who love to, I would say bank, I would say save, I would say hoard, but Barbadians like to protect themselves for a rainy day. The one thing that is going to be certain is that we are going to be using electricity in Barbados going forward. This is a sound investment. The investment in this space is a sound investment. You can invest to your capacity. You can invest, as I said, by renting land or renting rooftop space to get into the market. There are many different ways to invest. If you keep your ear to the ground, we keep publicizing how we're going to do it. Once the credit unions actually get fully up and running in this space, and once the co-op gets off the ground, then they're likely to be putting out information that lets the average Barbadian know how I can get in this space. It makes no sense now for you to be keeping money on the bank. You're effectively now paying the bank to hold your money for you. The return that you're going to get, it is expected, sir, that you'll be able to pay for any investment. If you actually make the capital investment, that the investment should pay off within 4 years. 4 years. Most of the licenses, sir, that are being granted for a minimum of 20 years. So after 4 years, every single thing you're getting thereafter, with except for maintenance costs, is profit. Pure profit. It does not, sir, get any better than that. I want to urge the average Barbadian, and everything that we have done has been done intending to liberalize this sector, democratize this sector, and enfranchise the average Barbadian. Nowhere else in our regulations or our policies or our government or any laws is there a carve-out for sectors. There's no carve-out anywhere to fund charities other than is coming in this space. There is no carve-out anywhere to fund utilities that have been for years a drain on the consolidated fund. There is no carve-out to do anything. There has been no carve-out to guarantee and lock in a percentage investment for average Barbadians. It has never happened before. But what we're saying is we expect that this space is going to blow up. And by blow up, and using young people speak, sir, I mean, I'm about to say explode now. We expect, sir, this space to become massive, provide massive investment opportunities. And it is critical, it's a policy of this government to take Barbadians along with us. We want to bring Barbadians along, to let Barbadians realize wealth, because there are real possibilities for wealth in this space. That is why, sir, we are carving out for certain sections to guarantee a whole. Sir, let me tell you how this can operate, sir. I spoke about the co-ops. If myself, sir, and other colleagues wanted to find something to invest in, and we thought, look, I could probably raise $1,000. You could raise $1,000. The member for Christchurch West can probably raise $100,000, sir. And we say, look, let us put together and take advantage of the fact that there's a carve-out for Barbadians. Let us apply for a license and put up some panels. Then I might not be able to do a big project by myself or a big plant, but some of us can. If the green spaces in developments, in many developments, sir, they build in green spaces that are held communally. In these communal spaces, sir, you can put down renewable energy projects that can help fund the costs and bring down the cost of the maintenance of the developments. The QEH is getting panels. Almost all of the government buildings have panels. The police station has panels. There's a massive solar car park out in Lakes Folly. The government headquarters, sir, we put panels on the car parks. There's no good reason, if you're building a car park, why not to plaster the top of it in panels? And every time you do that, that is money coming into your pocket. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I want to make it real, sir. Cha-ching. That would be, for Hansard, that would be CHA-CHING. Repeat. But, sir, the opportunities are there. I urge every single cooperative, every single co-op, there's an overriding energy co-op, but I urge all of the credit unions, whether it be the secondary BSTU credit union, whether it's the City of Barbados, City of Bridgetown credit union, all of the credit unions who have to bank their money now in the commercial banking system. We are going to make it possible for you to invest in this space. You can now guarantee your members a real return on their investment and their deposits with you. Sir, stay tuned. I could keep talking and keep talking and keep talking, but I asked Barbadians to follow the Ministry of Energy. We have a lot of information up on our website. You can contact the ministry if you want further particulars. You can contact the co-ops, sir. There's likely to be some PR in relation to the launch today, the first general meeting, and I'm going to ask that following this, that the Ministry of Small Business put out the information so people can get in touch with others who are looking to invest in this space, because this, sir, is as good as it gets. It is a safe investment in a space that is relevant to now and is relevant to the government's policy. Going forward, oil and gas will become, the consumption of oil and gas in Barbados will become a thing of our past. And all the money we used to spend on that is now going to be circulating in our economy to generate our electricity, to generate our energy, and to power our cars. It is the perfect time for every Barbadian and the average Barbadian to get into this space. We have built this space for you. We have secured a place in this space for you. I can't shove it down your throat. All I can say to you is that with the clearest conscience in the world, as the Minister of Energy, standing in the Parliament of Barbados, where I have to speak the truth, this is perhaps the best investment opportunity you, the average Barbadian, the small man, is ever going to see. And having said all of that, sir, I have no other option but to entirely support these amendments that can make our dream a reality. With those few words, sir, I'm obliged.
God bless you. Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chair. This is perhaps one of the briefest of presentations I will make in this honorable chamber, simply because, one, I fully support the amendment to the Utility Regulation Act and Fair Trading Commission Act. And I wish, first of all, to commend the Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Consumer Affairs for bringing it to this chamber. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many of us who stand today in this chamber to speak are doing so on the basis that we have appealed successfully to ordinary Barbadians, particularly, to give us their support so that we can come here and create opportunities for them to benefit. We lived in a 10 years period, which is now commonly referred to as the lost decade, where our ship really had no rudder. And truth be told, there was no hope as far as ordinary Barbadians were concerned. The Honorable Member for St. George South this morning spoke to a Cahill project that totally excluded the use of the Fair Trading Commission so that a price can be arrived at to the exclusion of all of the Barbadians who could have otherwise benefited. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I didn't lend my voice in support to these regulations, these amendments, simply because all of us know by now that the champion of solar energy is from St. Philip South. And you would permit me to mention the name Mr. James Husbands, who created Solar Dynamics. And up and on he goes. and Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am today feeling that it is my duty and responsibility to help Barbadians to understand what it is that they stand to benefit from. And I have to start by letting all my constituents know that they will be beneficiaries of these significant changes that are taking place, simply because when I first heard of renewable energy, I often wondered, how would this benefit a poor man? Having heard the explanation from the Minister of Energy and Water Resource Management, I am now convinced that every single Barbadian, be it through your credit union or even through the process of the renting of roofs, will have an opportunity now to be able to participate, and this was never clear before, because I'm sure that the agenda before was not the same agenda that we have before us now. And that's the reason why the Cahill project was being pushed the way it was being pushed, simply because it was meant to be executed in this country to the certain exclusion of ordinary Barbadians. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, and this will include investors looking at how they can set up what is known as a solar farm. I, in principle, do not necessarily agree with the terminology, but I understand the concept. And the concept of a solar farm, as they refer to it, provides an opportunity for investment on large tracts of land in Barbados where solar panels can be set up. And I have said, and I've seen several of the files that came to my desk, and I've taken a policy position in the ministry that we should now have most, if not all, of these farms carrying a component of agriculture, be it black belly sheep farming, be it if you want to do forage for feeding animals, or even to put on the additional piece of equipment to capture the water, run off into a drain, and be able then to capture water for farming. And why am I saying this? because this is a revolution that is taking place in Barbados. And part of that revolution must address those things that have come now to humbug us, and droughts and water shortages is one of them. And so we have to be able now to take full control of the situation and make sure that we take full advantage. And so I'm urging that when investors are looking at solar farming, that they start to understand that it goes bigger and goes beyond the simple concept of just setting up the solar panels, but the value added to it, where you can rear black belly sheep or forage or even harvest water must be part and parcel of a whole. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think that these are exciting times for ordinary Barbadians, because who is it that will be attracted, and who is it that we are expecting to participate in the black belly sheep program that we're developing in Barbados? It is the same ordinary Barbadians. And so whilst it is that you may not be the investor in the solar farm, you certainly can be the one who is keeping and utilizing the farm for the sole purpose of rearing black belly sheep, or even for forage, as I said earlier. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is my fervent wish that Barbadians start to understand and embrace what is taking place in this country. Because many times the narrative is changed, especially to distract the most vulnerable among us. And oftentimes it is difficult to get them to understand that what is being done is in their best interest. So you would find people come and try to change the narrative simply because there's another agenda, oftentimes a political agenda, and one that is designed, and I may want to use this word because I strongly believe that that is what it's designed to do. It is to destroy the genuine and most sincere projects that are being brought here to this honorable chamber for the sole benefit of all Barbadians. And sometimes these acts are sinister. And I have seen a number of sinister acts within recent times, but I'm not ready yet to address those, because I do believe that when people resort to sinister behavior, they must be dealt with in a manner that they also must know that the same way you can see to destroy somebody's character, you know that you also need to look at yourself and make sure that there's not skeletons in your closet. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm saying so sincerely, because I know for a fact that I grew up as a boy where my grandmother would always say to us, the fowl that cackles the loudest is the one that laid the egg. And I strongly believe, sir, that these are things now that we have to address in this country. It pains me oftentimes, sir, to see that here is a government. We took Barbados through an economic transformation. From the time we became a government in 2018, we were ready to transform this economy. Our currency was on the brink of a devaluation. Our economics team moved with alacrity to make sure that we protect the Barbados dollar and at the same time rebuild our foreign reserves. Sir, that is transformational. Sir, that is work that was done immediately after assuming office here in this country. But would you believe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the narrative today is such that you will think that nothing was ever done, and that we are living as if it was like the past 10 years and so everybody has gone back to regular behavior. Whilst we continue to work around the clock, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and all the fingering that is taking place in this country with a petty fingering with a very petty and silly narrative, Mr. Deputy Speaker, making jokes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, at a time where we have just managed a COVID period, where everybody was able to live so comfortably that they hardly recognized that we took them through 3 months of a country shutdown. Because had they recognized this, they wouldn't have time for idle gossip and simplicity in behavior to sanitize the expression that I might have used otherwise, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I'm concerned about what has become of my beautiful Barbados. When we reach a stage in our development where all is being done to transform this country, you cannot tell me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that at the end of this, all Barbadians don't stand to benefit. They do. Previously, we had an arrangement where there was a type of investment strategy where only certain people felt as though they belonged, and so they went there. Others were never even thought to understand that they can do it too. But here it is, we have already set the threshold that an investment here in renewable energy, 30% must go to Barbadians. Minimum 30%. Because the minister is reminding me that you can also have 100%. And this is the same approach that I took with the medicinal cannabis legislation as well. And I'm happy to report that the regulations are coming back here very soon. So that as people continue to poke at silly issues and not addressing the reality of Barbados, where we have a currency that is not devalued, where our foreign reserves are better than they have ever been in a whole decade, Mr. Deputy Speaker, $2 billion. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is unprecedented at a time when there's no tourists coming to Barbados and managing a COVID period. And so I am at a loss as to what it is people are seeking to lay blame and criticism about. Because if I am to look at it seriously, I would say that this government has created a comfort for Barbadians that they need time for comic relief, and so therefore we can take a few jokes. And I understand that. I understand that. But you cannot tell me in reality that we don't have greater security in terms of economic security, economic development, and empowerment and enfranchisement in Barbados, to the extent that more Barbadians now are being transitioned into the ownership structure of Barbados. This did not happen before. This is part of a set arrangement, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that says minimum 30%. That is how you secure it. That's how you ring fence. You make sure that it happens. You don't just talk a talk simply for the sake of talking a talk. You talk, you act, and you ring fence, and you put systems in place to ensure and protect as well. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what else can you ask for? We have said that we have come to government and that there are certain things that will be transformational, and we are also working on those things. This is one transformational project we're working on. We are also working on transformation in agriculture, where we have now taken the sugar industry, and we have agreed in principle at Cabinet that we would transition the whole industry into a value chain industry, where we are not selling sugar now like we did in the past. You had to rely on selling sugar in bulk and losing sometimes 100 to 200% more than what it costs to produce it. And that what we would do is go the full value chain. And I'm happy to report that we have now sold molasses this year at almost double the price that we were selling it at before, during even a COVID period. And that we will go now from sugar, molasses, and into renewable energy. And that is the reason why this project contains a component or mix for biomass. And that when we transition into the new factory, you would have sugar, molasses, and renewable energy giving ordinary Barbadians as well a chance to invest and buy shares in that new entity, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So all around, when we speak, we are speaking about securing economic enfranchisement for Barbadians to make ordinary Barbadians a part of the ownership structure of this country. And I do recall, sir, the days when this conversation was taking place, and I remember Sir Hilary Beckles speaking to it, and he spoke to it eloquently, to the extent that he said sometimes you have to find a way to give a man a leg up in order for him to participate. His concern, sir, was that we did not have enough of our ordinary people being part of the ownership structure of this country. I have now seen and be part of a cabinet that has determined resolutely that every single thing we do, it must involve ordinary Barbadians, and that is the reason why we have the ring fencing of 30% for minimum for Barbadians in renewable energy and medicinal cannabis, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. And as we go forward, you would find that more and more Barbadians will get a chance to become owners in this country, something that didn't happen in the past. You have a lot of people in Barbados who resort to farming. You have your poultry farmers, you have your pig farmers. And what is it that is generated on those farms? Waste. That waste also can be used to generate energy. So that in the coming months, we would then start to look at how we can then capitalize on what is available here in this mix of energy options that are available to do biodigesting on pig farms and poultry farms, and it has already started. So that all we need to do now is build on it. There's an experiment that took place at the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security already, and it works. All we need to do is build on it so that owners of these farms can reduce their energy costs straight away by moving to biodigestion. And that then provides them with the energy that they need. But what is it that we are doing? We are fulfilling a manifesto promise that said we will remove our carbon footprint by 2030 and transform Barbados to a full renewable energy economy. And this is the process. It has begun. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe now that this is the time for us to remain focused, sir. Nothing is perfect. I have said that before. Many of us will slip sometimes because it is only human to err. But what can never change, sir, is the fact that we have delivered so much in such a short space of time. Only in 2 years, you know. We have delivered so much in a short space of time that people would choose to start to create schemes and machinations to seek to divert attention to most of the times what I call folly, idiocy for the most part, rather than focus on the benefits that we have. Now, I know that there are times when people may feel as though they're not part of because they don't understand. And I'm not one who's prepared to believe that we should say things and don't follow up with proper communication. I think communication is the key in everything. And that we must continue to communicate and communicate well, so that people start to understand what it is that is laid before them and how they can benefit from it. There are people who will not read, so don't expect them to know from reading. There are people who do not follow the news, so don't expect them to know from following the news. There are those people who will hear and do not understand, So do not expect them to get it right. But the one thing we can do is remain on message. And if we remain on message, Mr. Deputy Speaker, regardless to what happens, repetition, 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 eventually they will start to get it. And that is what I am proposing that we should do. Because there are those people who will have their set agendas. And based on that set agenda, they take advantage of the most naive. They simply do. And you would imagine that we came to government and every single minister in this administration had to declare their assets. That's right. Had to declare them. So that if you had to declare your assets, a process had begun. And that for anybody to even assume any modicum of corruption amongst this team is a person that has set an agenda over and beyond human imagination. And the only thing I can attribute it to is pregnancy and envy. It can only be because we have declared all of our assets, Mr. Deputy Speaker, all. So that it is easy now to check to see if any minister is involved in corruption. Easy. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when I say to you that Barbadians now have to focus on what they are benefiting from, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they have to. And they have to simply because I personally never thought we would have gotten through COVID the way we did. I mean, we showed up, Mr. Deputy Speaker, every Saturday without fail to help Barbadians through this. The Prime Minister continued to address the country. The Minister of Health and Wellness did an excellent job in making sure we hold things together and is still doing so. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are poised now to make sure we can start to rebuild tourism. What is it that it's so difficult to get across when we say to Barbadians, we got this. We got this. And we got it because look what is before us today. A revolution that is about to take place in Barbados, where we reduce the use of fossil fuels in this country, sir. So now we can breathe cleaner. We can live healthier because the air would not be polluted anymore. I'm sure the skies might have been very happy to know that planes were not flying through, polluting the atmosphere. And I'm sure, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the oceans would have enjoyed a relief from the emissions of fossil fuels going into our waters. And that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are living up to the times and making the changes to make sure that Barbados continues to develop. And that we are doing so fully cognizant of the fact that there are people who will work but may not necessarily save money. And so sometimes you have to find an opportunity for them. And that is why, sir, I like the BOSS program particularly. I like it because this is another tool, another investment tool to create for Barbadians savings outside of the banking system so that they now getting 5% interest on money that they would have normally held in the banking system, getting finance charges monthly rather than earning interest. So you got renewable energy. That is now giving people a chance also to find new instruments to invest in and to get a solid return. People who have lots of real estate can benefit from renting out their roofs to investors. So that all in all, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is it that you are seeing? You're seeing tremendous amounts of opportunities being made available to all Barbadians. But those who might not have necessarily taken advantage are now being ring-fenced in so that they will be part of. And the easiest thing a man can do is say, well, I didn't know about that, and nobody didn't tell me. and I didn't know I could do this, and I didn't know I could do that. We are making it possible now for you to be involved. If it is through your credit union where you have your savings, then you will benefit. So all around, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am saying that this is a piece of legislative amendment that I have to fully support, because I know what it is like to be part of a working class environment where all you knew was struggle. Today, what I'm seeing taking place in Barbados is a chance for Barbadians to become owners in the economic pie of Barbados and being added to the economic structure of this country, sir. And so I fully endorse and support these amendments. I'm obliged to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to wrap up the two amendments and this debate, the Fair Trading Commission Amendment Bill and the Utilities Regulation Amendment Bill. But I cannot wrap up without thanking the Minister of Energy. He made it pellucidly clear. You know, his diction was exceptionally well. I just got a comment. And indeed, he laid it out that the average man can understand. And I want to thank him for the contribution. This is his ministry, the Ministry of Energy. Fair Trading is the regulator. And he has been hard at work. And I want to commend him as I stand on this floor to wrap up this debate. I also want to thank the Honourable Member for St. James South. And while she was speaking, the member for Christchurch West and I, we were having a conversation. And indeed, she was taking the debate to another level in terms of seeing all the opportunities that can develop out of this investment in the renewable energy sector. And she used the word a revelation. And I concur. We have indeed break new ground that were being looked at and trampled on, but we have really broken new ground with this amendment. We have laid the foundation for the sustainability of this renewable energy sector. And the Ministry of Energy, the Minister, will carry on the good work, either by issuing licenses and dealing with the interconnection management, the IRP, inter-resource management planning, integrated resource management planning, all of the technical details that will see this industry become, if not the #1 foreign exchange earner, close to becoming the #1 foreign exchange earner. And I wish to thank the Honourable Member for St. Philip South as well. Agriculture is a key stakeholder in the renewable energy sector. And indeed, the availability of land, his discussions and consultation with the Tongue and Country Planning, the Ministry of Finance, Tongue and Country Planning, will indeed bear fruit as we seek to allocate lands for this key sector. But Mr. Speaker, I am really disappointed in one of the members who spoke today, and the member for St. Michael West. But I just want to register the disappointment in him. I will not say anything further, but just that I am disappointed that some key bills came to this honorable chamber, and he had advance notice, and he could have come and either support or don't support and put his argument for, but not once did he deal with the issue at hand in this lower chamber this morning. He sought to be disingenuous and insincere in his comments as they related to the Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Commerce. Mr. Speaker, I leave it there. And I repeat again, judge me by my actions as Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship, and Commerce. That's all I have to say to the Honourable Member for St. Michael West. But, Mr. Speaker, foreign direct investment into this country, in this sector, will give this economy the necessary boost that we need at this time. But, Mr. Speaker, for me, what is fundamental is the investment and the opportunities that ordinary Barbadians will have to take part in this sector. And indeed, when we, as a government, and I heard the Honourable Member for St. Philip South mention it, one message continues to be repeated at every stage of this country's development under the stewardship of the Prime Minister, Honourable Mayor Amon Motley, the member for St. Michael Northeast, and under the guidance of this cabinet. The enfranchisement of the working class people in this country. Every single ministry, we can examine the work of every single ministry, and you can see how we have been focusing. Never have I seen a focus on the ordinary man before, like I've seen now by any political institution or government. And I've been around for some time, and I've been associated with this party for some time. And I want to say to this Lord Chamber, we will continue to stay focused. We will continue to push the frontiers, whether it is in renewable energy, it is in agriculture, it is in rebuilding the tourism industry, or it is building the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, which I have full responsibility of ensuring that not only through cooperatives, but we put the necessary system in place, like the collateral registry, that the average man who was unbankable just a short time ago, by the end of this year, people will begin to recognize that there are other assets that the average Barbadian have than just land that can be recognized when they go for loans, and people go to below to have their fair share within this renewable energy sector. They have something to take to the banks. And I know the banks will welcome them, because this playing field, the Honourable Member for St. Michael West, everybody can play in this playing field. So this is one sport we are playing. And this is a sport to rebuild Barbados. And this is a sport to give the ordinary man the opportunity that they never had before. And, Mr. Speaker, these amendments, as we approve these amendments in this Lord Chamber, the work of FTC now begins. FTC will have responsibility for the rate setting for renewable energy technologies and systems above 1 megawatt. And I outlined the average capacity that we have to fulfill annually until we reach our 2030 target. And I want to thank members in this Lord Chamber, those persons who have worked on these bills to get them there. I called some names already. The AGs here, the Attorney General, the consultants, members of the Ministry of Energy, Fair Trading Commission, and last but by no means least, our Prime Minister and members within her Ministry of Finance. So, Mr. Speaker, with those words, I beg that this bill be read a second time.
Question is that this bill be read a second time. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker,
Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg that you now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for the further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I do not leave the chair. Yeah, we are. Okay, before you leave the chair, we have to appoint member for St. Michael Central. Yeah. Member for St. Joseph. West Central. Can we have a seconder, please? Question is that a member for St. Michael West Central be appointed as acting chairman of committees for the remainder of the day. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member for St. Michael West Central. All right. Move that I know to leave the chair. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that you may now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of these bills.
Seconded. The question is that I do not leave the chair and this House resolve itself in committee for further consideration of this bill. All the members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
See you.
This House is in committee.
Clause 1.
Second. The question is that Clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I 3 stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Clause 4 stand part.
The question is that Clause 4 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Report.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. Mr. Chairman, I beg to report the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is, sorry, second. Yeah. The question is that the bill so cited be reported. All on members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reportedly passed a wrong bill in committee. Honourable Member St. George South.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be passed and cited as the Fair Trading Commission Amendment Act 2020.
Question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Order number 16, sir.
Utilities.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this
Just
Public utilities.
in the name of the Honourable Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Commerce, the second reading of the Utilities Regulations Amendment Bill 2020.
Honourable Member St. George South.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. Honourable Member St. George South.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that you now leave the chair and the House be resolved into committee for further consideration of this bill.
Questions that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Jeffrey.
This House is in committee.
Clause 1.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 1 stand part.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 3 stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 4 stand part.
The question is that Clause 4 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Report.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you don't now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of our bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees has reported on the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be read a third time.
Question is that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be now passed and be cited as the Utilities Regulation Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, I beg that the bill be now passed and cited as the Utility Regulation Amendment Act, 2020.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Order number 13, sir. In the name of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, to move the second reading of the Police Amendment Bill 2020.
Honorable member for St. Joseph.
Speaker, there are two bills before the chamber today that are similar in nature and purpose. In addition to this, there's the matter of the creation of the post of an additional master. That's order number 14, number 12. I am therefore craving the chamber's indulgence that the two of these orders can be debated together in a cognate fashion.
Question that the two bills be part of a cognate debate. 12 and 13. Our member for St. Michael West?
He was seconded.
Right.
Just a query, Mr. Speaker, whether or not the Honorable Attorney General has in fact established that the two bills are so like that it would be advisable that they be discussed as one or in the context of one debate, because I am not convinced that they are that like.
Honorable Attorney General. Honorable member for
Mr.
St. Joseph.
Speaker, the matter has been seconded, and I'm not sure what standing the honourable member's comment is. I don't know what a query is after it has been seconded. From the procedure, he ought to put an alternative motion. But be that as it may, I don't want to be too formalistic. The bill relating to the Supreme Court, sir, seeks to amend the Supreme Court of Judicature Act to increase the number of masters of the High Court from 1 to 2. The purpose of the amendment to the Police Act is to increase the number of deputy commissioners from 1 to 2. The facts speak for themselves, sir.
Continue. Point is made. Continue. I have so made a ruling that I give them to the account to get, and it shall so be done.
I am much obliged, sir. Mr. Speaker, there are times when the public of Barbados weighs in on issues that they consider to affect them. And as long as one is in public life, you must accept that you are, as always, and that you are always under the rule of the public. That is the nature of a democracy. That is the nature of our democracy. But more importantly, sir, it is the nature of the Barbados Labour Party administration of which we are part. Now, Mr. Speaker, in 2018, and I don't plan to be long in this matter. I allow that for the Leader of the Opposition. In 2018, we came to government at a time when Barbados had become much like the Wild Wild West. The criminal element had for several years appeared to have taken a bold stance and were committing crimes, and especially gun crimes, left, right, and center. There were legitimate concerns by us as an opposition party and by the people of Barbados as to the capacity of the Royal Barbados Police Force, sir, that had remained much as it had been for 10 or more decades. And the question was whether with the existing structure they were well poised, sir, to help to arrest this scourge of crime, especially violent crime, and even more especially firearm crime. We well remember the gunplay on Spring Garden. I think that was in 2016 or 2017 on Kudumat Day. We well remember daylight shootings in Black Rock communities. We well remember those things, sir. And this administration, from as far back as our Covenant of Hope, signed on to by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition as well, and in our manifesto, signed on to by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition as well. Those were his glory days, I dare say. All express the fundamental principle that the first call on public expenditure was the safety and well-being of Barbadians, law and order. We came to government and we made certain decisions. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a document of the House, a piece of correspondence emanating from the hands of the Commissioner of Police, and I believe that I could give a paraphrase, but given its import, sir, I will ask that you allow me just to read the few paragraphs. It is dated November 7th, 2018. From the Commissioner of Police, sir, to the hand of the from the hand of the Commissioner of Police to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Home Affairs. And it begins, it is entitled Recommendation for an Additional Post of Deputy Commissioner of Police within the Royal Barbados Police Force. And it begins, apropos of various discussions with the Prime Minister, Honorable Mia Motley, and the Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Edmund Hinkson, I write to formally make recommendation for the creation of an additional post of Deputy Commissioner of Police. Do I need to read more? This is an earnest request from the Commissioner of Police, asking that this administration create an additional post. And he set out the rationale. He says the Deputy Commissioner of Police is expected to assist the Commissioner of Police with his responsibilities and acts as Commissioner of Police in his absence. He is specifically responsible for ensuring that all complaints made against members of the force are properly investigated and appropriate action taken, and takes direct responsibility for overseeing the operations of the police band. Further, the Deputy Commissioner has 4 Assistant Commissioners of Police reporting to him on the areas of responsibility. These Assistant Commissioners are assigned the following areas: Assistant Commissioner, Human Relations; Assistant Commissioner, Administration; Assistant Commissioner, Criminal Investigations; Assistant Commissioner, Operations Services. He continues, oversight of all these departments has proven to be very demanding and results in some areas not as effectively monitored and managed as is desirable. Added to this, and this is key, the demands of law enforcement have grown exponentially over the past 5 to 10 years, requiring the constant rethinking and reviewing of policing strategies and the need to pay greater attention to detail and follow through. In this regard, it is expedient that we move towards the institution of 2 posts of Deputy Commissioner of Police, the attainment of which would lead to greater administrative effectiveness and efficiency, sir. That is the earnest plea of a Commissioner of Police for the creation of a 2nd post of Deputy Commissioner. It is a plea that was answered by this administration. Now, sir, we have spent a lot of time and energies debating the matter of the Commissioner of Police, and as far as I can distill the essence of the debate, the argument has never been that we don't need an additional Deputy Commissioner of Police. Not a fella has said that. The argument has never been that by attempting to create an additional post of police, we were engaging, this administration would be engaging in some flagrant abuse of power, in some licking out of government expenditure, in some ignoble and dishonorable purpose, sir. None of those things were ever canvassed. So that tells me, sir, that at no time could it be said that the Barbadian public felt that the appointment of a 2nd Commissioner of Police was not justified. The argument, fanned, created, burnished, blown up, invented to, by the 2nd Lieutenant and 2nd in command of the leader of the opposition's party, is that the appointment was unlawful. I read the Honorable Senator's post, the gentleman from the other place, and he said, you know, I don't know if to congratulate the deputy, but he's being appointed to something that does not exist. So is it, Mr. Speaker, that this debate is and has been focused purely on a formalistic approach to dealing with this as opposed to a substantive approach? Now, sir, we have got 2 legal opinions from the finest minds in Barbados on this issue as to whether or not it was lawful to appoint an individual to an additional post of Commissioner of Police in circumstances where the Police Act says that there is to be a Commissioner of Police. Now, sir, the Deputy Commissioner, sorry. The Interpretation Act is there. The Interpretation Act says, well, the singular includes the plural. All kinds of, the plural includes the singular. There are all kinds of ways of approaching the issue. And the one, sir, that is well settled in law has to do with the doctrine of implied repeal, which says, first, sir, Parliament is illimitable. And therefore, if it passes a law that is inconsistent with an earlier law, then by virtue of that illimitability, sir, the earlier inconsistent statute is deemed to be implied repeal for that purpose. The only limitation known to law, sir, is the Constitution. You can't impliedly repeal a constitutional provision because the Constitution is the highest court in the land. And in addition to that, sir, Section 49 of the Constitution operates. So if you want to amend the Constitution, you have to say you intend to amend the Constitution. So, sir, I did not feel that we wanted to get into a public debate, drawing in the opinions of legal luminaries and the niceties of the law and citing 2 or 3 dozen cases supporting the point. And in my statement on the issue, I said, sir, that it needed tidying up and that we would tidy it up at the earliest opportunity given the COVID challenges. That opportunity, sir, is today. I don't plan to say a lot about the legal arguments. This administration, in seeking to appoint a deputy commissioner, was not engaged in any act of wastefulness or dishonesty. This administration was seeking to satisfy the earnest requests of a commissioner who felt that he needed an additional hand on deck at that level. The opposition was heard to say he should have to pay back every cent. No, sir, that is the political party that wants to represent people. And to a limited extent, they do. And I'm very glad that that extent is, in fact, limited. But for them to even suggest that an individual who goes to work every day, carries the burden of his office, discharges his responsibility to the public, but because there's an inconsistency between two legal provisions, that the gentleman should not get paid. You know who should not get paid, sir? People who don't work shouldn't get paid. The members in the last administration who occupied the halls of Parliament for 10 years, somebody should say that they should pay back every penny that they got. That I would applaud, sir. I hear the loud thumping by the leader of the opposition on his desk. He is applauding it too. Those are the people who should not get paid. People engaging in acts of dishonesty should not get paid.
Clearly, Mr. Speaker, I should not even have to ask you to have the Honorable Attorney General withdraw a comment. I never thumped any desks. And he really should take that back because it is absolutely...
I said I heard Fancy.
It is absolutely untrue.
And Mr. Speaker, I take it back. I take it back. I heard thumping from that general direction, and it is a thumping, sir, that I supported. It is a thump of agreement. I have to consider then that by his absence of thumping, that there's disagreement. And he's entitled to disagree on that matter, sir.
He did not thump, honorable member.
It wasn't him that thumped.
No. He's the honorable member for...
I apologize, sir.
St.
There's so
Philip.
many accusations that could be made against politicians that when the day comes that we take umbrage at having been accused of misthumping. Sir, what a world we're in. I apologize to the honorable member for saying that he thumped. I acknowledge that he did not so thump. Sir, but the point is that a gentleman went to work every day for months and worked hard and carried his weight, and the opposition could be associated with a request that that gentleman return his pay. That is what politics has come to in Barbados, sir. Mr. Speaker, we've said we are going to tidy it up. And that is what it is. The Act says a Commissioner of Police. We're going to amend the Act today. A Deputy Commissioner of Police, we're going to amend the Act today to change that singular into plural. And the opposition can make as heavy weather of that as they wish. And the commentators who join them are entitled to do so because this is and long may it remain a democracy. And I believe that contending voices always make for a better country, sir. So I'm happy to entertain the contending voice of the leader of the opposition. But I say, sir, that if we continue to take the approach that is that looks at that chooses not to look at the substance, let me put it that way, then, sir, I think that we are failing somewhat. It is at liberty for us to say that the law allows us to do it, and I'm satisfied based on the legal opinions that I have sought and obtained that the gentleman is in an office. I'm satisfied as to that, sir. But as I said, we're here to tidy it up, and tidy it up we shall. But you know, sir, I will just close by one thing. In the last 10 years in government, well, the 10 years before 2018, practically every week, we were faced with a validation bill for this and a validation bill for that. And there was some error in the legislation, and we come to validate it because the powers that we thought we had, we didn't have. Mr. Speaker, this is a parliament. It is not a parliament of fools. It is a parliament, sir, of people who, for the most part, carry out their duties faithfully, and I'm happy to say, over the last 2 years, sir, honestly, without any personal gain as motivation, and driven at all times by the highest of ideals, sir. And I am proud to be a part of an administration that is able to do the things that are necessary to ensure that the Royal Barbados Police Force can carry out its mandate. There'll be other times for other debates dealing with policing in Barbados. This is not that time. But what we have done by creating the post of an additional Commissioner of Police, Deputy Commissioner of Police, is to strengthen the hand of the police force and to enable them to do a better and more modern form of policing, sir. It is a hell of a thing that you have a force that has remained largely unchanged over the last decades, and that efforts to change them, sir, could have come to be so criticized, not because we've in any way done the wrong thing or done a dishonorable thing, but because the formula that was chosen might not have been correct. Sir, I am proud to be able to say that I was part of an administration that tried to change the Royal Barbados Police Force for the better, and I'm proud to be a part of an administration, sir, that continues to try to change the Royal Barbados Police Force for the better. And it is consistent. It is consistent, sir. For years, the judiciary of Barbados had been struggling, and it still struggles, no doubt about that, with manpower. And in 18 short months, this administration increased the size of the judiciary, and we now have 20 High Court judges sitting on our bench. We moved from 13 to 20, sir. We now have an official civil division, commercial division, increasing our existing 3 divisions now to 4. We're making a large number of initiatives, sir, where we are bringing into to play a large number of initiatives, e-filing, and a whole set of other things to modernize the judicial system in Barbados. Part of that, though, in order for it to be successful, requires introducing an additional master of the High Court to help to move the cases along. And in case the honorable member is wondering, nobody has been appointed to the post yet. Not yet. But we recognize that it is important, sir, in order to be able to have the judiciary functioning at its optimum capacity, that we needed to have an additional master. And for the benefit of those who are listening to us today, a master is a judicial officer whose role is not to decide cases, because a master is lower than a judge, but whose role is to manage how that case moves through the course of justice to make sure that it moves through as swiftly as possible. Now, sir, we have one master. 1,800 civil cases are filed every year. You have 20 judges, so at the end, you have a large pipe, but at the middle, you got a bottleneck. So a large pipe at the end, a large pipe at the beginning, but in the middle, a bottleneck. And therefore, it was obvious to us that in order to ensure that cases can move through with the degree of dispatch that we require, we would need to increase the number of masters by at least one. And the Supreme Court of Judicature amendment is for that purpose. So, sir, we're increasing the number of deputy commissioners from 1 to 2, and there's some consequential amendments that follow. And we are increasing the number of masters of the Supreme Court from 1 to 2. Now, these additional posts in themselves will not solve our crime problem, nor will they solve our problem in relation to the delivery of justice. But it is certainly a clear fulfillment of our commitment to both sides of that coin, to ensure that both the police and judiciary are empowered to function at the highest level, all for the benefit of Barbadians. Not for the benefit of any politician, not for the benefit of anybody in this chamber, not in order to put money in anybody's pocket, but in order, sir, to benefit the people of Barbados. This tidying up in relation to the police force, as I said, we have two legal opinions that say to us there's no issue. Implied repeal takes care of that. But even though implied repeal takes care of that, so I would still want to come back to this chamber and change 1 to 2. It's a simple matter. Simple matter. And the issue with the master, sir, we're treating that in the same way. So I'm asking that this chamber support these 2 amendments. There are other, the chamber, and we mustn't speak about things to come. I think that's one of the rules and traditions. But there are other things that will come in due course which may be related to this. But sir, I am honestly, in a way, very, very pleased that Barbados has paid attention to the things that we're doing. But that is, you can't educate citizens and then expect them to play the part of fools. That's not how we got here. We got here because we were educated, and we've come forward and offered ourselves. And I listen to the calling programs as often as I can. And sometimes people are complimentary, and sometimes they hit me and my colleagues hard. But you know what, sir? Those things strengthen not just our democracy, but they strengthen us as servants of the public. And long, sir, long may it continue. I'm obliged to you. Speak.
Honorary Member for St. Michael West. Honorary Member, could you turn on? Honorary Member. Honorary Member, did you move the motion for the second time?
Second.
Honorary Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do not know where in the document called the Covenant of Hope there was any indication that the Barbados Labour Party should it form the government in Barbados, would be seeking to appoint a deputy commissioner of police, ultra-virus. I heard it said that there was a certain member in this honorable house who signed on to the Covenant of Hope. Inference to be drawn from those who hear, and perhaps those who are lesser informed, would be that that certain member in this house agreed, and is documented under his signature in the Covenant of Hope, that this administration would appoint a second deputy commissioner outside of the lawful framework for so doing. Equally, I do not know that there's a document titled the Manifesto of the Barbados Labour Party, again on the signature of that honourable member, that would have indicated the intention of the government, its commitment indeed, to appoint a second deputy commissioner outside of the law. So straight off, let's dismiss that offering. Now, clearly what the government is seeking to do is to correct a gross misstep. Clearly, what the government, perhaps a little painfully, is having to do is to come here to seek to tidy up a mess which was made around a matter as important as this. Now, clearly, the Police Act, as has been acknowledged today, and prior to today, publicly by the Honourable Member for St. Joseph, provides for the appointment of a single deputy commissioner. The public service laws of Barbados would allow that the minister with that portfolio could establish posts within a set context. The Honorable Attorney General and the government may have been advised by two of the highest, I think that's the phrasing he used, legal minds in Barbados, that what was done did not circumvent those regulations. He chose not to name those prominent legal persons. But I think equally on the other side, I have heard persons of some significant repute in that field, in that profession, suggest the contrary. So we may in fact have a divide in opinion on the matter. To stand and to say we were advised by two of the best legal brains that what we did is all right does not settle the issue for those who are otherwise advised that it is not all right. And so the exercise in which we are engaged today is an attempt, I believe, to make what was not all right, all right. Now, a senator from the other place who speaks in the name of the opposition should be credited for having raised this matter and brought it to public attention. And the fact that popular public opinion rallied around his view and his position, also informed by sound legal advice, to know that the popular opinion out there rallied around his view should be noted and acknowledged. And the honorable member from the other place should have been publicly credited and thanked by the government for drawing it to their attention as perhaps an oversight, rather than seek to have him derided in the face of the public, to laugh off or pass off his comments as nuisance comments, not worthy of a response. To me, that is a disrespect that was uncalled for. And I think if this matter, even after today, is weighed in the balances out there in the public arena, you, Mr. Speaker, would find that the majority opinion is appreciative of the fact that he was able to pick up on this, as is his responsibility and charge, to pick up on matters like this and bring them to the attention of that chamber, and by extension this chamber, and to the attention of the public. So he should have been credited rather than scoffed at. Now, when admitted, the misstep, when admitted by the honorable member who last spoke back then some months ago, the Honorable Attorney General, that it was a matter that had to be properly addressed and tidied up. A course of action to so do should have been immediately taken, rather than we having been privileged to have that course of action embarked upon. We had an attempt outside of the Attorney General and from higher up to reinforce the view by introducing some dubious principle of implied repeal. I have heard legal opinions scoff at that notion as well. That could only make matters worse. That could only seem a feeble attempt, a misguided attempt to defend a wrong, which can happen with anybody, with any entity. And the better and proper approach, the more advisable one, would have been the one taken then by the Attorney General. We got this one wrong. We correct it and get it right, rather than seek to reinforce a view which in the minds of the majority, in my view, could not be supported. Position of the opposition on the matter bears repeating with this specificity, and that is, we don't question the competence of the person in question as holding this position. We don't question his record of service. We cast no aspersions on his character or conduct. We don't. This party doesn't. Do not call into question his competence. Cast no ridiculous aspersions on either his character or conduct or record of service. We've raised a couple of questions. One has to do with whether or not this post, when properly constituted, could have been filled by the process of civilianization, which is common to modern police force entities in the Western world. That is a matter that can be argued, it can be defended, it can be scrutinized as to whether or not that type of process could have been used in bringing someone to fill a role that treats to the concerns as documented in this plaintiff cry read to us at the hand of the current commissioner or the current commissioner of police. We can argue that back and forth. That's simply one of the questions we have raised. Did we need to look for somebody who is steeped in police service to that extent? Could his services be better employed and utilized, and these responsibilities afforded the oversight of the process of civilization? So we don't question the competence. I have cautioned, and I do so again. I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, so to do. Caution the government against any appearance of putting itself in any place where it exposes itself to the charge of politicization of the police force. That has been an issue that has concerned this administration when in opposition. That is an issue that has concerned the public, is an issue that has concerned me. And I think now in government, the administration does not want to operate in any way that would render it subject, justifiably so, to any such charge. And I caution that that be a serious concern of the administration of today. Because we operate, as the Attorney General himself said, the Honorable Member for St. Joseph, in a situation where crime is increasing, certain aspects of crime, at an alarming rate, rendering the character of Barbadian society subject to some sinister changes which leave us far from comfortable. 50 murders in 1 year, by far too many. That's where we went last year. We are well on track for that this year, despite the fact that people were housed and confined and restricted in movements for 2-3 months. Yet we're well on track for that. A situation where the increase in violent crime, gun-related crime, other serious crime, where that increase threatens our way of life, where that increase threatens our appeal as a domicile worthy of investment, where that type of phenomenon suggests that the Barbadian spirit has so deteriorated that it is not something that we can hold up as a treasure before the eyes of the world and upon that basis invite people to come here, where we must feel that the environment of the home is no longer a safe environment, sealed from intrusion, unwanted intrusion. In that kind of a context, Mr. Speaker, you don't want to put yourself in a place where you could be justifiably charged with interfering with the police force. Questions have been raised and have swirled in this country over the appointment of a former commissioner to a position with some set responsibilities which are not necessarily totally clear to the public. We have had issues with morale in the police force, spoken to by members of significance and prominence in the force itself. We have had issues around the matter of promotions in the police force. Mr. Speaker, and now this. And you do not want to feed the view that this force has now become an entity like some others, which falls prey to the whims and fancies and machinations of a political directorate. That I would want to advise government to be careful to avoid. what we have represented in this misstep around the appointment of a second deputy commissioner in the way it was done prior to today, Mr. Speaker, reflects a persistence in bungling that is disappointing when one recognizes the number of legal persons on the other side, when one recognizes the talent boasted of on the other side. But we can have these repeated major missteps. It's a disappointment. And Mr. Speaker, it started from day one, and it continues up to today, day last. This administration failed to get right what is clearly constitutionally provided for in the appointment of 2 senators from day one. That was bungled. That was disappointing, but something we would push past. But to see repeated bungling at this level on these major issues is quite a concern for an administration so endowed. And that has to be checked. And somebody has to check that. Because it is all right to stand and to say after the fact, we listen to the people. But sometimes you're warned ahead of time as to the course of action upon which you are embarked. The whole series of things that I will take time to enumerate them, list them off today, because I don't want to be long on that. But what we have now glaringly established in front of us is something which I call fumble mania, Mr. Speaker. Fumble mania. People fumbling the ball in the field, all parts of the field. That is sad. That is disappointing. I do not know what is the cause of it. Maybe it's a heavy workload. Maybe it's the pressure of a timetable in getting legislation to this place and the other place. Maybe some people are too otherwise occupied. Maybe too heavy a dependence at this stage in terms of the schedule and the hectic nature of that schedule. Too heavy reliance is placed on the shoulders of the honorable member for St. Joseph as the chief legal officer for the government. But too much bungling. Day one. Got the appointment of senators wrong. Day last. You're now trying to walk back from these planning, these building stipulations in the amended laws. And in between, several, I'm not going to take time, like I said, there will come some time for that. I really believe to properly redress this issue, that this post should be advertised. I really believe that. That's a personal view. I think you should start from the beginning. And even if the same person is selected, I hardly see how it would be otherwise. But if you are going to do it properly, and have a proper process of selection, which it seems was not even followed in the first place, and then come through the regulatory channels and put in place the proper provisions to establish the thing. No, there are some, I won't go there. But Mr. Speaker, I really think that what we have before us does not simply reflect a misstep and a forced attempt to correct it. But what we have before us emanates from a certain attitude existent at a certain level in this administration that does not easily yield when confronted with truth. There must be a public outcry and a public pushback. And it must be feared that there's political capital to be lost if we don't pull back. And then we pull back. I don't know that that is good for governance. Because if that is the case, it is putting the political consideration first. It's giving the political consideration a bit too much primacy. So, Mr. Speaker, let me repeat, no issue with the individual caught in this situation. But I think having misstepped in the first place, the attitude in the face of that misstep leaves somewhat to be desired. And even with the presentation here today, I still think I hear, amidst all the talk about democracy and freedom of expression of opinion, I still think I hear, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. Well, I'm not too sure that that's the opinion that obtains out there. And I'm not too sure that we're looking to correct this in the right way or with the right spirit.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Honourable Attorney General in the amendments being sought. And I wish to echo a lot of what he said, but I want to put another spin on it. I was the president of the Barbados Bar Association for a number of years, sir. And like yourself, I have a vested interest in the court system and the administration of justice in Barbados. I am perhaps in the most uncertain job I've ever held in my life, because from the time I started to work, I was employed by myself. And I knew that I would never fall out of favor with myself. And I also knew I would never fire myself. So my employment and my status was secure. I, however, sir, am enjoying a position in perhaps the most fickle form of employment there is, where your status is secured by the will of one person who has the power to appoint and disappoint. So it is in my interest to make sure, sir, that when I leave politics and I go back to the profession for which I was actually trained, that there's something to go back to and that is working properly. Sir, our court system has for many years been plagued with systemic inefficiencies. We suffered for a long time under inadequate staffing, improper technology, archaic systems. It's almost as if the court system was designed to frustrate the litigants and the users of the court system. Sir, I guess at the time when the complement of judges was first decided, it made sense back then. Now everybody wants to sue. People are very well aware of their rights and they're not afraid to enforce them. Once upon a time, sir, people approached the court unwillingly. You went to court when you were dragged to court. And the expression was, you believe this boy dragged me before the court? Or that body dragged me before the court? Usually it was a creditor. It may have been a disgruntled spouse in a family law matter. It might have been that you'd fallen afoul of the law. But when we started to practice, sir, and I believe, I think I have a couple more years than you, sir, but a lot less than the Attorney General, and definitely a lot less than the Honourable Member for St. James North. Sir, when we started to practice, the proliferation of cases, the vast majority of cases in the system were probably criminal. Any civil cases were small cases. People were quite happy to settle their differences and make arrangements. But we've gone to a system And we've come to a point now where the amount of civil actions being filed in our courts, and for the average person as lawsuits being filed in our courts, is staggering. It is almost impossible to deal with the sheer volume of cases being filed. If you actually mathematically do the calculation and assign cases to the complement of judges that we had before, I think it was 13 AG, there was no way that the volume of cases filed in the court system could be dealt with by 13 people. It could not possibly happen. It was humanly impossible. The complement was increased, as the AG said, to 20 judges. I still believe it is difficult. We have to look at different ways of resolving our differences. We have to look at alternative dispute resolution. We have to look at mediation. We have to look at the other court-supported or court-annexed services that are popular in many other countries, and we have to get ourselves to that point, almost reversing the flow that led us to the point of being a litigious society to being one that is more aimed at settlement. We have to change our culture a bit and try to let us harmonize or see past our differences and come to points of mutual agreement that allow us to dispose of matters. Now, sir, without that, even the complement of 20 judges is not going to take us anywhere. A radical shift, a shift in the way the judges operate, a shift in the delivery of judgments, a shift in the way lawyers present arguments. Maybe more matters actually need to be dealt with on submissions and less matters heard in court. Maybe judges need to not be afraid to give oral judgments for simple matters. There's no way that a matter that is heard as an urgent matter, that has been granted a certificate of urgency and set down and heard as an urgent matter, should take months for judgment to come back. If it is capable of waiting months for the judgment to come back, then the matter was not as urgent as we thought. Either that or somebody is being severely disadvantaged by the systemic inefficiencies in our system. All of that to say, sir, that we cannot keep going in the way that we have been going for the last 15, 10, 5 years. It is a no-win situation. We're falling further and further behind the ball each year with every case that is filed. I believe there's a role for lawyers to actually tell their clients as well, sir, that your claim is foolishness. Sometimes lawyers don't like to tell people that, but sometimes you as a lawyer have to advise your client when this does not warrant engaging the court's attention. Go back and talk to your family member and try to resolve your differences. Go back and talk to the person you borrowed the money from, because you borrowed it, you owe it, pay him. We need to be very honest in the way that we approach our judicial system. Otherwise, we're going to clutter up, and the matters that deserve attention are not going to get them. Sir, I agree entirely with what the AG said. Even if we do fine-tune things at the point of filing so that less cases get in the system, and we fine-tune things at the point of delivery of judgments so that judgments are more speedily dispensed with, we still, as the AG said, have an issue of volume, because there are a number of clerks that can take matters to be filed. You walk in the registry, you can find 1 of 7 or 8 clerks that can stamp your matter and add it to the list of new court cases. We now have 20 judges at the other end who can dispense with justice, adjudicate cases, and hear them. But in the middle, if you imagine an hourglass, sir, right? It's an hourglass system, a big vessel from which the cases come, the smallest narrow point in the middle to allow a grain to pass through at a time, and then possibly a big end to allow the judgments to be dispensed with. It was essential that a new master be put in. The bar had been agitating for it for a while. For at least 5 or 6 years, the bar has been agitating for a new master to come into the court system, to be appointed. I think the existing master was agitating for a new master. There is not one person who is intimately connected with the court system, who actually understands how the court system works, that was not in favor of a new master. So we have the new master. I believe we also need eventually to relook the actual role of the master. The master has a quasi-judicial function. There's somewhere halfway between the registrar and a judge. Some people call them a junior judge. And maybe we also need to look at the responsibilities of the master, to give the master a bit more responsibilities with respect to resolving non-contentious cases or cases that are at the lower end of the civil threshold. The threshold for civil cases, I believe, sir, is $10,000 to file a civil case as opposed to the magistrate's jurisdiction, the summary jurisdiction. But we may wish somewhere going forward to look at the role of the master in cases at the smaller end of the High Court spectrum. So these are just some suggestions and thoughts that I wish to tender. Luckily, I happen to sit on the side that is able to make those things happen. And I believe the AG has started in the right direction. He started by identifying where the bottleneck is and clearing that one. That should give some immediate relief, because at least now immediately twice as much work and twice as much processes can happen once the new master is appointed. With respect to the role and the appointment of the second Deputy Commissioner of Police, I hear the technical arguments being made by the opposition. I hear the argument that was tendered by the opposition representative in the other place. And we always used to hear when we were in opposition, stop objecting, stop opposing for the sake of opposing. If the reality is that the police force needs another deputy commissioner, if the commissioner has begged for it, if Barbadians are calling for the police to be more efficient, and we need to stop looking at our institutions, sir, as a royal this or a royal that. We need to start seeing them as a business. In the same way that the Water Authority is in the business of selling water, the Royal Barbados Police Force is in the business of protecting Barbados and Barbadians. And they're in the business of upholding the law. So let us not look upon them as another department. They are a company or a business charged with a certain responsibility, perhaps one of the most important responsibilities in the island. And in the same way, sir, you have a president and multiple vice presidents of a company, and you filter it down according to needs. We should not be afraid to change the structure of the police force to make it relevant for the time in which we live. There should be no fear of it and no apology for it. I mean, there may come a time when there's need to add another deputy commissioner of police or other assistant commissioners of police, or to insert a new rank, because we go from private constable to sergeant. There may come a point where you have to insert another rank, lance corporal or something, or corporal of police. We cannot try to apply the old methods and the old structures to what is a new and evolving and dynamic criminal element. The criminal element has changed. The dangers confronting Barbados and Barbadians have changed. The criminals are better informed, better communicating, better armed. It is a completely different criminal that the police have to face. It is now time for the criminals to have to face a completely different police force. A police force that is better structured, a police force that is more relevant, a police force that is better armed, a police force that has better communication, a police force that has better resources. It is time for the criminals to now fear the police force. It must be at least as competent and well-resourced as the criminal element is. And I wish to commend the Attorney General for his stick-to-itiveness. I mean, it is easy to get distracted when people are there to heckle. Some people come or approach issues with the sole intention of heckling. I think there's an element there that is focused now on the AG with the sole intention of criticizing every single thing he does. I wonder where that element was when the last Attorney General held the office. had that element been as vocal then, had that element been as persistent then, maybe we would not have found ourselves in the position that we are in, where all hell has broken loose in Barbados. So I commend our Attorney General, and I want him to know, for what it is worth, he has my complete support. I look at him and see a person who is in charge of his position, who is in charge of his responsibilities, and who is dispensing them to the best of his ability, and probably better than almost any other post holder, any other person who has held that post in the history of Barbados. So, Attorney General, I wish to commend you on the job that you have done so far. Finally, don't be ashamed. Finally, sir, the AG likes to use the word invidious, right? I find it invidious that this storm in a teacup has brewed. If the argument was that the deputy commissioner was appointed without lawful authority, and we are here to now sort that out and make wrong things right, where does the argument and the debate then lie? Because we are correcting whatever you complained of. Having said that, the point as made by the AG about the implied repeal is sound. Now, the learned leader of the opposition said that public opinion was fine. I guess there's a role for public opinion, and we as politicians have to sometimes explain things and do things that make sense to the public. But, sir, the law is the law. And the principles of the law, generally speaking, the average person does not get the technical ones. Implied repeal, as much as we try to explain that, that is lost to people, and people will never understand that. However, it exists. However, it applied. However, it was right. But I agree with the AG. I agree with the AG. At the end of the day, the statute still has won. So whether it was impliedly repealed, you now come to the point where we can correct that. And we're killing two birds with one stone. It makes no sense to leave it at one when it needs now to be more than one, because it may confuse somebody else later. So we took the opportunity, and the AG took the opportunity to just clear that one up for the record and for the books. I have no issues with the appointment of the existing deputy. I don't know his politics, so all the people who are talking about politics, I don't know his politics. I've known him for 20 years. He was at law school with me. He was actually there a year before me. Well, more than 20 years, sir. But I think he is an excellent police officer. I think he's an excellent servant of the people. I think he has an astute legal mind and is exceedingly more than competent to hold his post, the post that he's already acting and doing so well. So when you put all of that, and you weigh all of that on the left hand, and you weigh I don't even know what to say. The word that immediately comes to mind is not a word that can be recorded, right?
So don't say honorary member. Don't use it.
You weigh the feeble arguments on the other, then all I can say is I entirely support the amendment to the Police Act for the purposes indicated, and I fully support the amendments to the Supreme Court and Judicature Act. And I urge the AG, please let us not stop there, because there's a lot more we need to do with respect to the administration of justice in Barbados. And I need a suitable and harmonious and efficient working environment if ever I am forced to go back there before I contemplate it. Sir, with those few words, I thank you.
Honorary member for City of Bridgetown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to make my contribution to this cognitive debate, but I will...
Cognitive and cognate.
Cognate, sorry.
And cognitive also, because as I said, there must be in the debates in this honorable chamber things that are sound intellectually and have that level of reasoning.
Well, so far I think we are going in that
yes,
that direction. But I want to focus really on the bill to amend the Police Act, Cap 167, to provide for 2 deputy commissioners of police and related matters. And I want to focus on that because I have been associated with the police force for over 25 years while serving as a member of the Barbados Defense Force as an officer. And so I think that I have a pretty good understanding as to the workings of the police force. All of the senior officers are persons that I would have interacted with. And I believe that when all is said and done, the intention of this particular amendment had not so much the legal implications and ramifications, but it was something that was done to improve the overall standing of the Royal Barbados Police Force. And I don't want at all for that to be lost in this whole discussion. And I really do believe that a lot of the comments that would have arisen as a result of this particular situation were not only because of the legal implications, but I believe that because this was going in a different direction, because for the existence of the police force here in Barbados, this would have been the first time that we were going in this direction where we are appointing a 2nd deputy commissioner of police. And this, for a lot of people, would have been a change, that something that they're not used to. And I am certain in my mind that a lot of people would have thought that this was something that is unprecedented, and it certainly is not. And this is really where I want to base my presentation here. I think it's a very simple but the most important amendment, and I fully support the Attorney General, the Honorable Attorney General, in the statement that he made some time ago about the appointment of a 2nd Deputy Commissioner of Police, when he said that it did not result from any whimsical or capricious approach, really and truly. And I want to add to that, that as far as I'm concerned, there are no politics being played here. And why am I saying that? Now, the police force, the Royal Barbados Police Force, would have been established under the Police Act of 1961. But the force itself, the main force, would have started back in 1835. And it was a force that was modeled on the London Metropolitan Police, known as the Met, or Scotland Yard, or the Yard. And when the force was established, the force reflected the political and social landscape of the time. And within the structure of the police force, a number of branches and departments would have been added over time. There would have been significant changes to the force, and those changes obviously reflect what is happening today. Even the demographical situation that obtained in Barbados back in the 1960s and so on would have steered the force in the direction of the police stations and jurisdictions, for example, that would have been established at that time based on demographics and so forth. And the senior command of the police force for several years would have been a result of the social landscape of the time, where the senior officers would have been recruited from the United Kingdom through the Colonial Office. And we have seen a lot of changes over time. And I know sometimes change may be difficult to accept. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, that this is not unprecedented. There are several countries across the globe that have 2 deputy commissioners, and in one case that I'm aware of, even 3 deputies. I would cite, for example, in Ireland as one, 2 deputies. Hong Kong, 2 deputies. Papua New Guinea, 3 deputy commissioners of police. And within the Caribbean region, CARICOM, Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, and Grenada has 2 in its establishment, even though not in legislation, so it is not unprecedented. In fact, I would go as far as to say that when you look at the way the police force has changed, has evolved over the years, one can see why such a requirement or request would have been made by the present Commissioner of Police. several organizations, other institutions and arms of the force have been created as a response to the dynamic nature of criminal activity in this country, regionally and internationally. When the force first started, there was no mounted branch, for example. There was no mounted branch. That came back in 1933. Back in 1880-something, 1882, I believe, the Harbor Police was amalgamated or unified with the main police. Before that was disbanded 100 years afterwards. From Commissioner Durant through the years down to the present, we've seen things like the Juvenile Liaison Scheme, community beat officers, resident beat officers. There were no drug issues way back. So once the drug situation got to where it is today, we had to create a special drugs unit for guns, dogs, you name it. We've even reached the point now where, because of cybersecurity threat, the police force has had to go in a different direction where that is concerned. Money laundering, financial intelligence, all of those are new areas that the force has had to go into. So the work of the police force, even though the force might not have increased numerically within recent years, it certainly has been stretched by the addition of all of these other responsibilities that I have just mentioned. So these things are very, very important. So that what we are seeing in terms of the addition of a second deputy commissioner of police is, in my view, a step in the right direction. The commissioner of police, or the person that holds that post at this point in time, really needed those two posts or two persons to be able to help him to manage a force that is evolving, as times are indeed evolving. And that would now allow the assistant commissioners and staff to be able to deal with the operational matters, or actually executing the policies that will be formulated by that top brass in the force. And that is important. That is important. And I really am happy to see that the Commissioner of Police has two fine officers as deputy commissioners of police who can help him to take this force forward. So there are things that have come and things that have gone in relation to the evolution of the force. A lot of younger members may not remember me, Minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, raised it just now, Essential, sorry, the whole issue of the rank of Corporal East. The rank of Corporal. The rank of Corporal existed in the Royal Barbados Police Force for years before it was removed. It was removed from the structure of the force, and that at that time that seemed strange also, just as it may be strange to some people to see a second deputy commissioner of police. But that rank was removed, so that sergeant then became the first supervisory rank in the police force. That was another change that has taken place within the Royal Barbados Police Force. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with having a second deputy commissioner of police in this country. So I certainly support that. As far as the at least 2 points that were raised by the leader of the opposition in terms of the politicization of the police force, I strongly would advocate that this is not the case with this second post of Deputy Commissioner of Police. I know quite well the senior officers of the force, and I am pleased that this country have two gentlemen, as I said before, who are quite capable of the positions that they hold, capable of performing. They're qualified, they're certified, they have the experience, and I think that both of them working in tandem to support the Commissioner of Police could only be down to the benefit of the country of Barbados, and I think it is a move in the right direction. But there are one or two other things here about this that I would like to speak to. The Barbados Police Force at the moment, because we carry the retirement age to 67. And what that has done, that has created a situation, because if you are in a hierarchical organization or one with a hierarchical structure or rank structure, it means that you are going to create a bit of, yes, because in terms of upward mobility, if people then go to the age of 67, the creation of the post of Deputy Commissioner of Police, and we've also created, I believe, the post of an additional Assistant Commissioner of Police. This opens up the gap. This gives persons a greater opportunity now for upward mobility, and again, that's a step in the right direction. The creation of the additional post of Assistant Commissioner of Police was to deal with some problems that we have been experiencing in this country with prosecutions for decades. And when we decided that that post would help us and help the police force to be able to have someone who is coming to work every day to supervise and to look after prosecutions in this country, that was another step. That is another part of the evolutionary process in terms of the Royal Barbados Police Force. And again, that is something that we should be proud of. But it does not end there, and that is why one of the reasons why I can say that this has nothing to do with politics and must be seen in the totality. When the Barbados Labour Party assumed office, we made a determination that we would put as many resources, or make as many resources available to the police force as we possibly could. And that, in terms of finance, trying to make sure that they have the technology and the equipment and all of those things that were required to be able to execute their duties and responsibilities. And the situation with the Deputy Commissioner of Police is another one. This is part and parcel of the overall desire of this administration to give the police all of the resources that it requires. And we will continue moving in that direction because it is necessary, because it's a criminal activity, and policing in general is something that is evolving, and we have to move with the times, and this government will certainly continue to move with the times. And so I commend the Honorable Attorney General for bringing the amendment here. If it had to be done, it had to be done. But I want to stress that this is something for the benefit of the people in the Royal Barbados Force and ultimately the benefit of all Barbadians. And with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I reiterate that I fully support the amendments.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to intervene in this debate and to first address the lesser controversial of the two issues, the creation of a post for second master in the Supreme Court of Barbados. Of course, there's no one who could reasonably disagree with what we are seeking to do here today. We've heard about the tremendous increase in cases coming before the Supreme Court over the years, and in fact I used to wonder how we could only have one master of the court when I used to, of course, practice law up to just over 2 years ago. And this is a fundamentally wise decision to create the post so that a second master of the Supreme Court could be appointed. It also has to be realized, in fact, that the decisions of a master have to be in writing, unlike obviously that of a judge. And as the honourable member for Christchurch, he said, judges should take the opportunity to deliver more oral opinions rather than look to write judgments that will take a longer period of time. One of the problems that we've had with our system, and one of the areas where the Honorable Attorney General has sought to bring impetus to when he brought a bill to amend legislation and constitution last year to give the judges the opportunity to deliver judgments in a speedier manner and to make it, in fact, judicial misconduct where decisions are not delivered in a timely manner. But the master has to write the decision. Their decisions cannot be oral, and that, in fact, was an issue that I had when I was a practicing lawyer, where a decision was rendered after about 4.5 years because the master had to write it. So there is, I think, no dispute, no one who understands the practice of law and how law is administered and has to be administered in this country would have an issue with the bill that the Honorable Attorney General has piloted today in that regard. On the issue of the appointment of the creation of the positions of a second Deputy Commissioner of Police under the Police Act, Chapter 167A, sir. And look, sir, the Honourable Member for the City who just spoke has given this Parliament and the Republic of Barbados the tremendous benefit of his 2 decades in the armed forces and obviously working in close association with the police in terms of the justification for such a position and the historical background to it. I mean, yes, our police force model on the 1835, I believe it was English Act, Robert Peel, one of the Peels, sir, Peel the younger or Peel the older, one of the two, sir, and we know obviously because of the fact that we were a colony until 1966, our force model and that, and coming up, continuing even after independence with the archaic nature of the force, even though the country that we took it from would have evolved to more modern situations. And this is what has happened, sir, in many of our administrations and our functions and our institutions, sir, where we continued with what was existing in colonial times without modernizing, whereas the country that we took these institutions from modernized. And that is why, sir, the task is so difficult now, so challenging for this administration, but which we are dealing with, sir, and which we are confronting in full force, and which we are succeeding in doing in terms of modernizing our institutions, modernizing our way of doing business, sir, modernizing our total existence and the total existence of the people who live here and who we serve to create a better Barbados. This is what we are about, sir. And this is part of that whole system. So as the Honorable Attorney General said, I mean, we would have been in discussions, sir, because what we faced when we came into office was an unacceptably high level of crime, sir. And crime is not political, sir. It should never be politicized, sir. And the solutions to dealing with crime and confronting crime, sir, and wrestling it to the ground should never be cast in terms of politics, sir. And discussions being held, sir. I mean, initially, I would have had responsibility for the police, sir, but the Attorney General, of course, involved, and of course the Prime Minister, sir, and yes, the Attorney, as the Attorney General said, the Commissioner of Police, the leader of the police force, sir, telling us, look, we need a Deputy Commissioner of Police. You need 2 deputies, sir, police force. What, 1,250 people odd? I'm not so sure the exact numbers now. I know that you recruits would have graduated 2 months ago, sir, but of course, because of COVID, no graduation would have been held. I'm not sure how many, but certainly still under what is the, what we would like it to be, but 1,250, 1,300 policemen, sir. And as the honorable member for the city said, I mean, the police force is a business, sir, like any other. It has evolved into a business from what it was in 1835. And the commissioner must know the limitations in the structure of the institution of which he heads. And he would have put it in writing to the then permanent secretary in my ministry, and we moved to accommodate that, sir. I have no doubt, other institutional restructuring of the police force that is required at the present time and which will be looked at, sir. Because there are government departments that have 2 deputies, sir. There are 2 deputy chief technical officers in the Ministry of Public Works, sir. The Ministry of Public Works is not as complex or as numerically strong as is the police force. There are 2 vice presidents in many of our businesses in Barbados, sir. Vice president of corporate affairs, legal affairs, and then a vice president probably of human resources and administration. In some too, then you have a vice president of finance, sir. But we can't continue to live in the dark ages. Not certainly when it comes to an institution as fundamental to the security of our people, sir, as is the police force. So there's no question of that, sir. I mean, as the honorable member for the city has said, the tasks and the issues that the police force has to confront, certainly within the last 20, 25 years, has grown in astronomical proportions, sir. Money laundering, corruption, etc. Sir, the public of Barbados is calling on the police force to deal with corruption, sir. One of the major issues which the public is concerned about. You have cybercrime too, sir, a concept that 25 years ago appeared in the minds of very few people. Sir, how can a police force deal with all of this multitude of issues under a previous structure? So you have a deputy commissioner of police, sir, and you've heard too of the attorneys in this parliament, sir, the learned attorney general, the member for Christchurch East speak towards nothing probably being done wrong, sir, but yes, we accept that the Parent Act, the Police Act, sir, also needs to amend it because after all it only speaks to one. And so even though, yes, there is legal opinion to say that we did not err, sir, we have come here humbly today to say, look, if there's any ambiguity, we're clearing it up today, sir. Well, that is what a government that is accountable and transparent to the people does. Not, sir, like the last administration, that quite frankly has no moral authority to speak in public on this issue, sir. Are we going to deal with that here? No. No moral authority, sir. Because they operated an administration that, for example, created a post, sir, of executive chairman of the Barbados Water Authority. Paid $150,000 a year plus allowances, sir, entertainment, travel, all that kind of thing, sir. Illegal. The Barbados Water Authority Act speaks towards a chairman, not an executive chairman, a chairman of a board of directors. Like any other chairman of a board of directors, Sanitation Service Authority, National Conservation Commission, which I was, sir, National Housing Corporation, not an executive chairman who in their day-to-day, sir, interfering with the administration and the operations of the Barbados Water Authority. And what was the result of that, sir? What was the result of that illegal, unconstitutional, illicit, unlawful act, sir? $1.4 billion gone through the header, sir. $1.4 billion in contracts given without transparency, without accountability, without going through the correct channels, without abiding by the law that had been set. $1.4 billion, the government and taxpayers of Barbados out, that could have by now replaced all the 100 and 150-year-old water pipes, so that people in St. John and St. Joseph, St. Andrew could have got, St. Lucie, St. Peter could get water, sir. And people in some parts of my constituency, St. James North, like Baker, sir, could get good water rather than brown water. That is what the last administration did. Creation of an illegal position, executive chairman. And when we told them that, sir, ignore it, sir. It is, you know, that is no big thing. We doing it because we have the authority and power to do it, sir. We're not like that. We've come here, sir, to change, no, amend the Parent Act. Even though concerted and erudite legal opinion has said, look, you did not err, sir. That is what we're doing because we are responsible, we are accountable, sir, and we are ensuring that all our T's are crossed and our I's dotted, sir. But you have still the last Democratic Labour Party administration, their leadership, speaking, criticizing this government on this point, sir. First thing, sir, the minister who, thankfully, sir, member of Parliament for St. Philip West has finished his political career, sir, and the executive chairman and the whole cabinet of the Democratic Labour Party, the last administration, sir, should account and pay back this $1.4 billion, sir, that we could do with now, that the Water Authority could do with now, sir. That's the first thing. Rather than seek to intervene in this, in the public, and speak towards this administration committing an error, sir. And lo and behold, even more so, the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party has no moral authority in this issue because he is a large part of the confusion which emanated in the police force and which was present when we came into office. The General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party was the chairman of the Police Service Commission, sir. Now, you know, decency. And you know, sir, a former Prime Minister of Trinidad said that politics has no moral minimum, sir. As a politician, sir, quite frankly, I want to fundamentally disassociate myself from that statement because I believe that there must be a moral minimum in politics as in every area in life. So there must be a moral minimum. And there is no moral minimum when a Prime Minister, as the then Prime Minister was, recommends to the Governor General to appoint as Chairman of the Police Service Commission, the General Secretary of the party, sir. Or that when that person becomes General Secretary of the party, the moral minimum should be that you resign from the chairmanship of a constitutional position affecting the national security of a country, such as the Police Service Commission. But that was not done, sir. Democratic Labour Party has no moral authority to speak on this issue. And, sir, I mean, sir, as I said, I know, sir, because I have been a member of this cabinet, sir, and obviously Home Affairs Minister, so I know, sir, we know about the valid allegations the valid allegations made against that police service commission as headed by the present General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party in making appointments with a political motive in mind, sir, that has undermined the police force. So when we talking, sir, about politicizing the police force, sir, I can speak as a member of this cabinet, Minister of Home Affairs, the minister who had responsibility for the police for the first 7 months, that is not the case now, sir. We have even taken the step, and we had to, sir, to now establish a protective service commission, sir, to give greater transparency to a whole process and greater accountability, and, you know, bringing the police force in terms of appointments and promotions and everything else, personnel matters in terms of the oversight commissions to a protective service commission, and bringing, in addition to the police, the prisons and immigration departments under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the government security guards, firehouse under Home Affairs, and customs under the Honorable Prime Minister under this commission, sir. All of that to bring greater rationality and transparency to a process, sir. So that is what this political party is about, sir. We can confront the matter, sir. I'm confronting the matter here today, sir, because the PDP, sir, and the DLP, neither of which won any seat last election, sir, have no moral authority to come here and talk. And the two of them, sir, I understand politics, sir. I've been around politics from the time I was born. I was born into politics. I understand, sir, two group of people fighting now to be opposition here, sir. What that's what it's about. I mean, if the two of them want to fight as to who can be opposition, that is their business, sir, but don't involve Barbados Labour Party government in that, sir. You deal with that at that level, sir. So you have a situation too, sir, as the Honourable Prime Minister revealed to the public of Barbados, where two persons were shortlisted a few years ago, sir. I think it was in 2016, to be Deputy Commissioner of Police, sir. Two persons shortlisted. And that 3 weeks before the last general election, one was appointed, sir. The other person shortlisted is the person, sir, here now that the Protective Service Commission has appointed to be the second Deputy Commissioner of Police, sir. In other words, sir, even with its political motivation, and as I say, sir, its lack of moral minimum, sir, the Police Service Commission that was there, headed by the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party, sir, realized the worthiness, sir, of this individual who has been appointed now as second Deputy Commissioner of Police, sir. So the attempt, sir, the subliminal attempt, sir, to say that this is a political appointment is, quite frankly, something that is, you know, undignified, sir. Something that, as I said, if I didn't understand that you have two groups of people fighting to try to become the heir of the opposition, sir, I would say has to be condemned at the highest level, sir, because the individual, and you've heard the Honourable Member for Christchurch East speak, they were at law school together, I believe, about the intellect of the gentleman, sir, involved. There's no one who has questioned whether he should be in that position. No one is saying he's unqualified for the position, sir. And therefore, to seek to bring it within this mode of politics, sir, is extremely unfortunate. especially when it is such an important position to the national security and the countering of the criminal element in this country, sir. And for that, anyone who has done that is doing a disservice to this country, sir. One that in some countries would be recognized as treasonous, quite frankly. So I've been around this Barbados Labour Party, sir, like I said, from the time I was a little boy. I don't know the individual in terms of any politics whatsoever, sir, any political association. I don't want to know neither, sir, because this is, you can't bring politics now into resolution and dealing with criminal activity, sir. And really and truly, anyone who has sought to do that, whether they're PDP, DLP, without any seat in Parliament, sir, is quite frankly doing this country a national disservice. But, sir, that's what we have come to in terms of politics among some in this country. Sir, as was said by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, where we're into a situation, sir, where, you know, we're being highly scrutinized as members of a government, members of a cabinet, sir, and nothing wrong with that. I welcome that, sir. I certainly, as member of cabinet, I believe my colleagues do. The Honourable Member for St. George South, who spoke earlier today on another bill, said he welcomes it too. Of course, sir, it keeps you on your toes. Nothing wrong with that, but the Honourable Attorney General has done tremendously well in the 2 years that he has resumed this position, having been Attorney General for the 2 years leading up to the general election of 2008, sir. Brought a tremendous amount of legislation, sir, transformative legislation in this country, where we are seeking to now change the way, as I said, of doing business, of our sole existence, sir, how we operate and live day by day as a people, and how visitors to this country as well can be made to feel that we are, or we will be, one of the best countries in the world in terms of doing business and the ease of doing business. The Attorney General, as Minister of Legal Affairs, has piloted many bills, tremendous amount of bills in this Parliament, sir, which will transform this country. And then the digitalization of police certificate of character, sir, which was started when I was minister with responsibility for the police under the Ministry of Home Affairs, sir, and completed now, sir. But I absolutely, 2 years ago, you would not have thought that could be done, that you had to wait 2 months, sir, for a police certificate of character, for which you required 86% of the jobs in Barbados. And by the time you apply, and the 2 months up, and you get the police certificate of character, sir, the job gone. And under the Democratic Labour Party last administration, sir, the machine break down, sir. Machine break down a time. So you couldn't get any police certificate of character, period. But the business not waiting on you to get a police certificate of character. The business going on. Move on from there, sir. You know, you could get a police certificate of character in 2 days, sir. But one day. But that's what we're doing, sir. But yes, I accept, sir, that in politics, and I say that all the time, sir, that in politics you open up yourself to public scrutiny, sir. Everything you say, every step you make, sir, you're a public figure. I understand that, but I am not, sir. I'm going to confront, sir, any situation by the opposition where, in my judgment, they have no moral authority to speak. Because I'm not going to take lashes, sir, or allow my colleagues to take lashes, sir, and once I have breath in my life, sir, with the will of the Lord, let it go by, sir. No, that is not me, sir. I can confront And we can deal with it, sir. We can fight toe to toe, sir. That is the truth. So we talking, sir, about the honorable leader of the opposition speaks about bungling of appointments, sir, and bungling of matters, sir. As the honorable Prime Minister said, there's no perfection in life, sir. I mean, we're human. To err is to be human, sir. That is the truth. The question is to correct any errors, sir. And the errors are not fundamental, sir. Errors in terms of perhaps constitutional legal matters, sir. So let's deal with what the honorable leader of the opposition spoke towards, sir. Appointment of 2 senators, sir. Well, I don't know that was any bungling, sir, because from the start we realized that and we corrected it, sir. So what bungling of appointment of 2 senators we talking about, sir? But you know, you operate within a constitution of Barbados and laws, sir. We were handed a constitution in 1966, sir, of course, by a mother country, sir. That is the truth. We didn't have to go to battle and have internal war and political leaders going to jail, like in many African countries and even in Caribbean countries, to get independence, sir. We were handed a constitution by Britain, sir, and in fact, our constitution is an order of the British Parliament still. So who would have thought that founding fathers, sir, or that a mother country would put in a constitution of a newly independent state, sir, a situation where 2 Barbadian-born people, 2 Barbadian-born, you know. And when you're Barbadian-born, you're automatically a citizen of Barbados, sir. Could not sit in a Senate, sir, an elected parliament. But that is where it was. Well, anybody would say, well, a 5-year-old, sir, would say, but, you know, that is not making sense. That don't make sense. So you had that situation, and we changed the constitution right away. So how that get bungling, sir? The last administration bungled tremendously, sir. I mean, at 1 o'clock a morning, sir, some members of this parliament, the honorable member for St. Thomas here, sir, the honorable attorney general here, were in parliament 1 o'clock a morning, altering well, not them, sir, because they voted against it, but debating whether a constitution should be amended for the creation of an appointment of a chief justice, sir. But that is why we're called bungling, sir. But so I don't know, sir, what we are dealing with. I fully support both amendments being made here today, both bills brought to this parliament, sir. We will continue as a government to do best by the people to transform and strengthen and institutionally make better all the aspects of government and governance in this country, sir. And, sir, as long as I'm in this parliament, sir, this and others, sir, we will confront those who oppose for merely opposing sake without coming with anything better, and who in fact would have had an opportunity in a lost decade to improve this country, but rather than that took it into the gutter in every single aspect of life, sir. Every single aspect of life took this country into gutter, sir. And a situation where the last Attorney General, sir, I mean, he was Attorney General, he was also Home Affairs Minister, which I have the honor for the time being to have ministerial responsibility for, sir. I don't know one thing that was done under mandate. No reform whatsoever in child justice, sir. None whatsoever, sir. None whatsoever. No reform in terms of prison reform that we're now dealing with, sir. No reform whatsoever in terms of postal services, sir, where we have just had a study completed in postal service reform, which Cabinet will soon be deliberating on, sir. No reform in terms of probation. All of this, the legislation informing all of these fundamental aspects of home affairs and justice, sir, in tremendous need of reform. No reform in immigration, sir, that we're dealing with, sir. We're bringing in now online ED cards, sir. That we dispense with the paper. In terms of legal affairs, sir, we confronted a judicial system that was broken. Absolutely, sir. And a judicial system that fundamentally affects people's way of life, because, you know, when you have a court case, you want it adjudicated. It can't be going on for 10 years and no result, no determination of that. The issue remaining outstanding. A police force politicized, we confronted, sir. And the Honorable Attorney General, being part of a cabinet, seeking to address all these issues, and has addressed a lot of these issues, sir. And we stand in support here today. And this is the issue, sir. Second Deputy Commissioner of Police was required, sir, and we've done that. We've completed the Hastings Police Station, opened in February or March this year, after the last administration couldn't get it handled. All of this to improve and try to ensure that when Barbadians, our citizens, go to sleep in the night, that the comforted, sir, and the know that they're in good hands when they wake up the next morning in terms of security, sir. That is what we're about, sir. And, you know, to get into these, we're not getting into these battles with people who have no moral turpitude or moral authority, sir. But this is essentially it, sir. As I said, sir, the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party, quite frankly, is a disappointment. I've never spoken in here on these issues, but I think the time has come, sir, because, you know, you can't be just mouthing foolishness all the time and writing in every Sunday on foolishness. Someone with moral authority, sir. You are chairman of a police service commission. Having been a policeman, sir, junior policeman. So as I said, the appointment was flawed in the first place. That is the truth. Flawed, absolutely. Conflict. But the party or the prime minister that appointed, that recommended to the governor general to appoint you, loses mandate. 74% of the people, in fact, only 21% of the people of Barbados voted for the Democratic Labour Party. Love 30. Your moral consciousness should tell you you need to resign as chairman of the Police Service Commission, sir. Anybody with morality, with any moral understanding and Christian understanding would know that you should resign right away, sir. You have no more moral standing to be chairman of a Police Service Commission, a constitutional post, sir. But you keep on, sir, and you continue to make appointments, promotions, where valid accusations that they were, many of them were based on politics, politically motivated, sir, of tremendous concern. And even then, when I, as minister, wrote, after he resigned, sir, he then resigned after he became in the August, General Secretary. But the others, when I write up telling them, well, you know, look, I mean, you place your instrument of appointment at the disposal of the Prime Minister. Don't resign, sir. I mean, you want power and authority, sir, but it can't be worth that. Your moral consciousness has to come above power and authority. I mean, the next day after the election, there should have been resignation letters for this. And we have come no far beyond that. And there hasn't been one inkling that there has been any political appointment, sir, by the Protective Service Commission since its formation and establishment, sir. So the public of Barbados could rest assured that we are doing our best. We are working beyond, sir, the call, 200%, sir, to ensure that we get this country on the right path. So there's no government, in my opinion, that has done as much in the 2 years first time office in office as we have done, sir, on a top trajectory now to go forward and rise to the top. COVID comes along.
Your Honourable has 2 more minutes.
I thank you, sir, for so informing me. COVID intervening and handling COVID better than any other country in the world, any of the big countries in the world, sir, with 1 or 2 exceptions maybe. All the big developing countries with all the resources they have, sir. Even as we speak here today, COVID cases rising. So in all of them, we with the resources we have, sir, handling this thing, sir. Ensuring now the continued safety in terms of health, in terms of financial support to get through this period of our people, sir, even though we $500 million out now because of this. Something that we had no part in its causation, nor any control over its development. And so I stand as a proud member of this cabinet, of this administration, sir, in supporting these 2 bills here before Parliament today. I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. George North.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to briefly support this bill and to say that over the past 2 years, this government has introduced a number of measures to improve law and order in this country. I want to say I salute the AG, who has done tremendous work in improving the justice system of this country, because all persons in Barbados who are of their right mind will see that there have been a lot of work done in not only trying to improve the justice system, but also to improve policing in this country. And therefore, I could not stand idly by and allow this debate to concluded without lending my voice, because I believe that the creation of an extra post of deputy police is important in this country. When you look at the fact that we have more than 1,000 officers in the ranks of the Barbados police force, with only few high-ranking officers, you really need the extra supporting staff at that level to help train, organize, and of course, in this day where there are so many different types of activities that would involve policing, one could imagine that there will be, from time to time, necessary for us to change these things. And I want to say to members that there's nothing wrong in a government bringing legislation from time to time. This is what Parliament is for. Parliament is for looking at legislation, to improving legislation, and if you have it wrong in the first case, you come back again. And that's what is important. I have seen the Democratic Party, the member for St. James North was correct. There are many times when we had to come back here on many occasions in the past years and correct bills. There are many times when retroactive bills had to be brought back here. We were here when the Democratic Party threw out a former commissioner of police. One day he was there, next day he was not there. These are things that the last Democratic Party did to the Barbados police force. In this present dispensation, we can see that everything seems to be going above board. We can say that the AG is trying his best not only to improve law and order in this country, but also to ensure that the police has a better way of not only life, but a new dispensation in terms of creating atmosphere where technology is helping to drive the police force. For example, last member talked about the police certificate of character. We're now getting that back in 2 or 3 days, and we want to compliment the AG for that. There was a time when it took more than a month. Sometimes you can't get them back at all, and that in itself is important. So I want to compliment the AG. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the time has come, though, for us to look at a number of other things within the police force. The training of officers, I said, is important. Training of officers, not only in terms of crime prevention. The member for St. James North talked about cybercrime, white-collar crime, corruption activities. All of these are things that we need to look at this point in time. I think there is a need for us to not only think in terms of recruitment of officers at the age of 19, because I understand that recruitment starts at the age of 19. And I have made my point on this many years ago, that the recruitment of officers needs to be looked at again. I have said some years ago that the whole notion of when you were recruiting officers, that you look at their past history in terms of if they had activities in drugs and so on. I thought that was a thing of the past, but we definitely need to look carefully at the recruitment of officers. I believe the time has come for us, for the police force, not only to try to recruit persons who are straight, according to them, but who have had a history, yes, but who have conformed and are willing to live straight. I think the police officers, the recruitment division should look at these things as well. I also feel that there's a need to give certain contracts for persons who have passed through the police force and maybe retired. The time has come for us to look at certain contracts where police officer may have retired, but he was a good officer. He was involved in crime prevention, or he may be involved in technology. He may be involved in fighting of crimes. There are certain activities that he may very well have that type of speciality. And I think that there's nothing wrong in giving an officer a 2-year contract, 1-year contract in order to help train young policing. I think that we need to look at that, Mr. Speaker. It is very important as well. The long hours of policing should be looked at. I think that sometimes police officers have to work long hours, especially if they're dealing with a crime. I understand sometimes it goes as 12 hours. This year can be long. And I know that some time ago the Barbados Labour Party had introduced on-call allowance. I'm not sure. I think under the Democratic Labour Party this was stopped. I'm not sure what is happening now, but I hope the AG can let us know if policing those persons who have to work long hours, like nursing as well. We had introduced on-call allowance for nurses as well. If this is now back
if we have reintroduced this. I know it was stopped by the Democratic Labour Party. We believe that persons should be paid and paid properly, so that on-call allowance for persons who have to work long hours within the police force or in any government department, that we should look at this as well. I also feel, Mr. Speaker, that the whole focus of policing has changed. I think that the policing have they're now looking not more of to serve and protect. I think that this is commendable, and I would want to encourage the further training of officers to be more community-minded, to go into the community and help to direct, to work with persons in the community in order to not only solve crime, but also to help protect and protect those persons who are not involved, also to work with them, to work with young people. I think we need to provide the opportunity for persons not to get involved. And if policemen come through as community officers, then to some extent the community will be more friendly towards them, and they will work together with the police to improve our society. I think the whole focus needs to change from one, not only to serve and protect, but to stop doing number of things that can be made to improve our society. Long the days of policing where you talk about lick and lock up, I think that has been completed, and policing now is looked upon as more community oriented. They're directed towards better computers, better technology. We also need to look also at where opportunities exist for cameras to be introduced to help policing. I think there are lots of developed countries have introduced a number of new methods in policing, and training and ongoing training should be part and parcel of the police force from time to time. I think that without this, I understand that many of these officers are not able, high-ranking officers are not able to travel at this point in time, but a lot of courses can be done online. The number of things that can be done to improve the Barbados police force as they go forward, to make it a more modernized police force. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, that in the years to come, more and more persons will get involved in the work of the police. I think there's a time where the police force can open up to the public and allow the public to come in and see what they do, because sometimes people feel it's a mystery. I think that sometimes, and this is maybe one of the problems where you have police versus the community. I think the police can open up to encourage persons to come and see what they do, so that persons get to appreciate more and more what the police force is all about. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the recruitment of lawyers in the police force, recruitment of accountants should be encouraged. I think the police force has, over the years, a number of policemen have gone on to do training, but do they recruit persons from the level of accountant in terms of forensic accounting? Have they recruited, let's say, a QC as a lawyer to help them do certain work? At the time, there's a number of cases where in some jurisdiction, many forces have recruited lawyers, many have recruited accountants, many have recruited that speciality in order to help the force to get through with some of its business. So I see the need to do a number of these things in order to modernize the force, to ensure that the force becomes more friendly, to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the force, in terms of presenting activities before the court, I think we need to see a better improvement. I notice that they have done a lot of work in presenting themselves before the court in terms of preparing for court. I think this is necessary, and the time has come for us to get the best help for the police force in terms of technology, in terms of providing that activity. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill, and I hope that we can see continued changes in the police force, in the justice system, to improve our justice in this country. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable member for St. Joseph. You have to turn on your mic there.
Speaker, it remains only for me to thank my colleagues for being so generous with their compliments. I appreciate very much their support and their willingness to express that support in this way. Mr. Speaker, I beg that you do now beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do now leave the chair and that this House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of the bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This House is in committee.
Clauses 1 to 4.
The question is that clauses 1 to 4 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clauses 5 to 7.
The question is that clauses 5 to 7 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Members in favour? Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Report.
Second. Yeah. The question is that I do now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable member, you need to turn on your mic when you speak.
The chamber is so small, sir, that
Yes, sir.
I think my voice can resonate and get through yours. Beg to
I
move
think
that
for
this bill be
recording
read,
purposes,
be read a third time.
purposes. The question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Police Amendment Act of 2020.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Please.
Order number 12, sir. In the name of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, to move the second reading of the Supreme Court of Judicature Amendment Bill 2020.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move this bill be read a second time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do now leave the chair and that this House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of the bill.
The question is that the Speaker do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This House is in committee.
Clauses 1 and 2.
Beg to move that clauses 1 and 2 stand apart.
The question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand apart. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker passing of one bill in committee.
The question is, I do now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honour members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
The Chairman of Committees has reported the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited the Supreme Court of Judicature Amendment Act 2020.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, with that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I beg to move the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 21st of July at 10 a.m.
The question is that this aforementioned, that this chamber stands adjourned until the 21st day of July at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned on the 21st day of July, Tuesday, at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.